You just transmigrated as a slave, and were thrown into a mine to wait for death. But the moment your pickaxe struck the rock wall, you bound to the office survival simulator. It not only let you, at the brink of life and death, draw the divine life-saving skill of sycophancy, but even relying on stealing dry rations in the simulation, and the survival experience stolen from it, you managed to crawl out of the Helltier mine tunnel No. 3, and into the Black Tiger Gang's kitchen as a handyman. And at this moment, the system notifies you that you have reached 2 years of seniority, and a new trait is being generated. The moment the pickaxe was stuffed into my hands, I knew I was finished. The chipped iron blade, the wooden handle so rough it pricked the skin. The weight felt like it was dragging me into the ground. Dig! The foreman roared. The oil-soaked leather whip snapped in the air, the tip brushing past my ear. I subconsciously ducked my head, clutching the pickaxe, facing the pitch-black rock wall. Only one thought in my mind. How did I end up in this state? Not long ago, I was still a corporate slave who worked until sudden death. When I opened my eyes, I was already in the blood-soaked Luoxia village, with corpses everywhere and not a single survivor, except for me. Before I could figure out if I was dead or alive, a pack of wolves broke in, the Black Tiger Gang, there to pick up scraps at the scene of the massacre. A burly man with a scar across his face grabbed me by the back of my neck and looked me over, a bit thin, but still breathing. Throw him into the mine. Just like that, I jumped directly from a mountain of corpses and sea of blood into another living hell. In mine tunnel No. 3, the damp, moldy rock walls were filled with the stench of rust and rotting flesh. Dozens of sallow-faced slaves were mechanically wielding their pickaxes. No one spoke, no one looked up, and everyone's back was covered in crisscrossing whip marks. An old slave, so thin his ribs were countable, passed by me, squeezing out 3 words with his breath. Don't talk back. I didn't respond. That triangular-eyed foreman was standing 3 steps away, methodically wiping blood off his whip with a dirty rag, his expression as pleasant as if he were caring for a beloved collection. I took a deep breath, suppressing all distractions, clenched the pickaxe with both hands, and raised it toward the rock wall with all my might. The moment the pick point was about to strike, a cold electronic sound exploded in my mind. Ding! Detected that the host has been forcibly employed. Black Tiger Gang mining field, Black Workshop branch office. Office survival simulator officially activated. Newbie welfare. Initial free simulation attempts unlocked. In this human purgatory where life is as cheap as grass, you activated an office system for me? Are you kidding? A translucent blue panel floated in the center of my field of vision. Simulation rules. Based on the host's current reality, perform a complete life deduction. Work for 1 year in the simulation, and a fixed office-related trait will be generated. Do you want to start your first life simulation immediately? I mechanically struck the rock wall again and again, but my brain was churning. Died of overwork in the office in my past life, and in this life, I still have to continue clocking in at work in a simulator. The triangular-eyed foreman's whip snapped again, striking the rock wall less than a foot away from me. What are you daydreaming about? If you dawdle again, I'll whip your spine to shreds. A cold murderous intent rushed toward me. What else was there to consider? I gripped the pickaxe, and during the pause of raising the pick, focused all my attention on that blue yes button. The panel flickered. Simulation starting. Loading. The damp smell of the mine, the foreman's cursing, the burning whip marks on my back. All perception was emptied in an instant. The world vanished. A clean, blinding white, spreading everywhere without edges. Then the words came. In the center of the white background, a line of black song-style characters popped out one by one. Simulation starting. You are Lu Ping, 18 years old, a slave in the Black Tiger Gang mine. No cultivation, no background, no resources. You hold a chipped pickaxe in your hand, facing the rock wall of mine tunnel No. 3. A text adventure game, so shabby. Newbie employment. Draw newbie welfare. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Sycophancy, B rank. All existences with cultivation or status higher than yours will feel pleasure at your flattery. Current trait equipment slots. Do you want to equip this trait? Flattery? Fine, whatever. After equipping it, the text took a turn. The triangular-eyed foreman begins to see you in a new light, occasionally whipping you a few less times. When the fat kitchen steward passes by, your steward, sir, you look great today, makes him roar with laughter. In my past life, my flattery never hit the mark. Now the system has helped me enable auto-aim directly. At dusk, the mine shakes, the load-bearing timber snaps, everyone runs out. Old slave son boss leg is pinned by a stone. You turn back to grab his clothes, trying to pull him out, but falling rocks crush his neck. You only pull out half a piece of blood-stained coarse hemp cloth. I paused slightly. You dug mines for 30 days. Your hands developed 7 layers of calluses. The slave next to you died. The one next to him also died. You are still alive. 5 lines of text. 30 days. 2 lives. I am reading my own life. No, reading a death list. And my name hasn't been reached yet. Day 37. The triangular-eyed foreman is in a bad mood. His gaze sweeps toward you. A. Keep your head down and play dead. B. Actively step forward and offer the ore with a smile. C. Puff out your chest and shout, I want to complain about you. Lu Ping decisively chose B. The triangular-eyed foreman takes the ore and snorts. The whip turns toward the No. 9 slave next to you. The No. 9 slave is whipped 17 times, and dies in the corner of the mine that night. You survived. You feel a sense of indescribable disgust. But, you survived. The last sentence was repeated. The white background and black text had no temperature, no smell of blood, no gasp of the no. 9 slave before death. But I realized this wasn't a game. This was the real future I was about to experience. That no. 9 slave might also have been a living person with a name, but he died in this mine. After I handed over that piece of ore. You have learned, when the foreman passes, bend your waist lower than anyone else. You have learned, when food is distributed, accidentally nudge the largest piece of meat to the edge of the foreman's bowl. You have learned, when someone is being beaten, reduce your own presence to 0. Every line was a technique for staying alive. I even started taking notes in my head. Day 289. Mine collapse. Mine tunnel no. 3 where you are is blocked for 3 days and nights. 7 slaves are trapped inside. A. Calm emotions and organize self-rescue. B. Steal the half ration of dry food hidden in the belt of a dead slave. C. Shout loudly. I want to report you to the relevant departments. I chose B. 3 days later, when the mine tunnel was dug open, only 3 of the 7 survived. You were one of them. No one knew about the dry food. Your conscience learned to shut up in the first year. I found I had no emotional fluctuations. Not numbness, but just like scrambling for clients and stepping on others' proposals in my past life to climb up. What was the difference between that and stealing those half rations? Different stakes. Same logic. 19 years old. 1 year of seniority. Trait generating. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Paid pooping. C rank. During your time in the restroom, your earnings are unaffected. Current trait equipment slots. Do you want to equip this trait? I looked at the name of this trait and was silent for 5 full seconds. Paid pooping. C rank. Fine. Equip it. Better than unpaid pooping. The text continued to push forward. Day 341. The kitchen is short-handed. The fat steward remembers the sweet-talking kid from the mine. You are transferred to the Black Tiger Gang kitchen as a handyman. I let out a long breath. Although breathing didn't exist in the simulation, that sense of relaxation after surviving a disaster was real. Leaving the mine, the death rate dropped from 90% to 30%. Sycophancy saved my life once. You are a handyman in the kitchen. You learn to chop vegetables, tend the fire, and wash pots. You also learn to secretly hide leftovers in your clothes to take back and eat. 20 years old. 2 years of seniority. Trait generating. The text on the white background stopped. The trait with the gray border was slowly condensing into shape, and you stared at that blank space, with only one thought in your mind. Every life in this simulated world, every time you lowered your head, every choice of stealing dry rations, will at the end of the text description, become the chips for you to truly survive. But you don't know yet, when this trait truly lands, what kind of prefix and grade it will carry, landing in the one empty slot among your 3 trait slots. 20 years old. 2 years of seniority. Trait generating. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Scapegoat. C rank. Any mistakes or accountability occurring within your unit or institution will end up mysteriously falling on you. But for every mistake you successfully shoulder, your physical body constitution will receive a weak enhancement, and your resistance to beatings will increase slightly. After all, a weakling cannot carry this pot. Lu Ping's face, in that void of white space, turned green visibly. Negative trait. A purely negative trait. Lu Ping had just crawled out of the mine. His heels weren't even standing firm yet, when the system tied a black pot to him. As for the weak physical enhancement later, it was ignored directly by Lu Ping. Any pot, and life is gone. What use is that weak physical enhancement? Another C rank. This grade must be too high. Current trait equipment slots. Do you want to equip this trait? Trait slots not full. Must equip. Lu Ping greeted the system's ancestors for 18 generations in his heart. Must equip. If the trait slots aren't full, they can't be empty. This rule was more rogue than the overlord terms from his past life. At least with those terms, you could complain to 12315. Who do you complain to for this broken system? Equip. Trait forcibly equipped. Scapegoat. The effect was immediate. The text rolled out at a casual speed, dumping everything that happened in the next 6 months at once. The kitchen tipped over a pot of thick soup. The fat steward asked, "Who did it?" Everyone looked at you. The rice and flour in the warehouse grew moldy. The fat steward checked the accounts. Who was in charge? Finally, it was traced to you. The second-in-command's concubine complained the food was salty. The fat steward demanded accountability. Who cooked the food? You. Everything is you. No matter what you didn't do. One by one, they were pinned on you. Even if you weren't present. Even if you hadn't touched the stove. Even if 3 people witnessed it was someone else. The one who took the beating in the end was always you. But strangely, you didn't die. Every time after being beaten, after being cursed at, after being punished to kneel, you could always, at the most appropriate moment, use a precise piece of flattery to make the steward's anger dissipate by 3 parts. Sycophancy worked every time just right. One trait was hellbent on ruining Lu Ping. The other trait pulled him back from the line of death. The 2 traits formed a cruel yet ridiculous closed loop. The text on the white background rolled to the end of the second year. Speeding slowed down. A line of text, popping out character by character. End of the second year. While you were cleaning the woodshed in the kitchen, from under a pile of rotten wood, you dug out a broken book with half its pages eaten by mice. On the cover, 3 words could barely be distinguished. Body tempering manual. Lu Ping's heart shrank violently. He didn't recognize this book. In fact, he couldn't even recognize all the characters in this world. The 2 words, cultivation, were, to him, more distant than quantum physics physics in his past life, but intuition told him, this broken book might be the only variable he had in this godforsaken place. At the end, the text slowly floated out a new set of options. 3 simple lines of black text, seeming heavier than all the text before. A. Open the pages. Try to practice the half manual of the body tempering manual. B. Offer the manual to the fat steward to gain his appreciation. C. Tear the book into small strips, fold them into paper frogs, and go to the backyard to compete with the fat steward in long jump. Try to practice it yourself, or give it to the fat steward. Lu Ping had almost no hesitation. The fat steward's appreciation was just a joke. Cultivation was the beginning of defying heaven and changing his fate. What else was there to hesitate about? He was now just livestock left over by the mine. Take whatever bone he could chew, even if the bone was full of mouse teeth marks. Choice A. The text on the white background flickered, and then lines of black text rolled out, the speed half a beat slower than usual, with a rhythm of deliberately keeping him in suspense. You opened the body tempering manual. Broken copy. The first 3 chapters were still identifiable, but from the 4th chapter, there were massive missing parts. The book recorded a basic technique for tempering the flesh with spiritual energy, involving inducing qi into the body, meridian circulation, acupoint activation, and other core contents. You tried to comprehend it. This line paused for 2 seconds. Then, a line of cold gray text popped out, without a border, stabbing baldly in the center of the white background. Comprehension failed. Reason: no guidance. Mediocre aptitude. Insufficient information in the broken copy. Unable to understand the core method of inducing qi into the body. Lu Ping stared at the 4 words, mediocre aptitude. His past lives performance review was AC every year, and in this life, his spiritual roots were of the lowest grade, so he had been reincarnated twice, and heaven's evaluation system hadn't changed at all. But the text didn't stop there. You didn't give up. You hid this broken book in the cracks of the 3rd brick under the stove. Every night after everyone fell asleep, you secretly took it out to read. You chewed through it character by character. You couldn't understand it at all, but you were still chewing. Lu Ping had no special feelings about this. When cramming for finals in his past life, he was in this state too. Couldn't understand, but forced himself to look. The difference was, in the past life, if you couldn't chew through it, at most you failed the subject. Now, if you can't chew through it, you die. The text scrolling speed suddenly accelerated. The black text on the white background began to pour out in sections, no longer popping out line by line, but scrolling in whole blocks. 21 years old, 2nd year as a kitchen handyman. You are still chopping vegetables, tending the fire, and washing pots in the kitchen. You are still stealing leftovers. You are still reading that broken book you can't understand every night. The sycophancy trait continues to be effective. The fat steward's favorability toward you is stable at the pleasing to the eye level, occasionally giving you half a bowl of rice extra. The scapegoat trait continues to be effective. A kitchen pot broke. You shouldered it. The stove cracked. You shouldered it. The boss hunting dog got diarrhea. Nobody knew why. And in the end, you shouldered it too. You were beaten 42 times. Your bones broken once, but you are still alive. Then, the prompt for trait generation popped out. 21 years old. 3 years of seniority. Trait generating. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Passing the buck. B rank. Any troublesome business or tricky task pushed onto you can be perfectly transferred to others, and the other party cannot refuse. Lu Ping's focus narrowed abruptly. This was not a junk trait. This was something that could save his life. B rank. Same grade as sycophancy. Current trait equipment slots full. Current equipment. Sycophancy. Scapegoat. Paid pooping. Replaceable trait. Passing the buck. Do you want to replace? No need to think. Paid pooping. Get lost. Passing the buck replaces paid pooping. The 3 trait slots were rearranged. Sycophancy. B rank. Scapegoat. C rank. Passing the buck. B rank. Lu Ping reviewed this combination in his mind. Sycophancy makes the superiors like him. Scapegoat makes all the pots smash onto his head, then passively increases a little bit of constitution. Passing the buck allows him to push troublesome things out. Triangle relationship. The pot comes. Kick it out. The superior isn't happy. Flatter to coax them back. The effect of scapegoat couldn't be completely cancelled out. The beating he should take would still be taken, but, at least he wouldn't be beaten to death every time. And, being beaten also increased his constitution a little bit, which was 10,000 times better than the previous earnings unaffected during bathroom time. He didn't even know how to cultivate. Earnings my ass. The text continued to roll. 22 years old. 4 years of seniority. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Paid drinking. C rank. The time spent drinking tea and water every day counts toward effective cultivation duration. Do you want to replace any equipped trait? Current equipment. Sycophancy. Scapegoat. Passing the buck. Lu Ping scanned the description of this trait. Drinking time counts toward cultivation duration. The premise was, he had to know how to cultivate. He couldn't even induce qi into his body, so drinking water for a lifetime would still be in vain. Don't replace. 23 years old. 5 years of seniority. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Name tag. D rank. After wearing, you can actively display your name and position within a 10-foot radius. Don't replace. Displaying Lu Ping, handyman in the mine kitchen, is just asking to die faster. 24 years old. 6 years of seniority. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Clock in failure. D rank. A random late record appears every month, regardless of whether you arrive on time. Negative trait. Even more. Don't replace. Another 4 years passed. The text on the white background compressed these 4 years into dozens of lines of weekly reports. Chopping vegetables, tending fire, washing pots, getting beaten, shouldering the blame, flattery, reading the book at night, acting like a grandson during the day. The addition of the passing the buck trait indeed improved Lu Ping's situation, at least 3 times. When the steward's pot was smashed toward him, Lu Ping successfully led the fire to another unlucky bastard. One unlucky bastard had his leg broken, another was thrown back to the mine, the third one was simply gone. Lu Ping didn't feel guilty for them, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't dare. The emotion of guilt was too luxurious. Those who could afford to be guilty in this place usually didn't live past the second year. The scrolling speed of the text slowed down again. A line of text, popping out character by character. 25 years old, 7 years of seniority. The kitchen steward embezzled a large sum of money from the gang leader. The matter was exposed. The text stopped here. The white background was blank for 2 seconds. Then new content floated out line by line. The steward panicked. He needed a scapegoat. The scapegoat trait started to exert its power. The steward dug out all the account books from the past 5 years, pointing every unexplained entry to you. He said to the gang leader, "This kid has been in the kitchen for 5 years. He has handled a lot of silver. The time periods where the accounts don't match all correspond with the days he was on duty." The gang leader was half believing, but the steward brought out 3 witnesses, 3 kitchen helpers who had been greased by the steward in advance. They all said the same thing, insisting that it was you who stole the silver. If the steward succeeded, you would definitely die. Options popped up. A. Utilize the passing the buck trait, transfer the blame to another kitchen helper, and then use the sycophancy trait to show loyalty to the gang leader. B. Directly expose the details of the steward's embezzlement to the gang leader, using the criminal evidence of the steward secretly collected over these years as a bargaining chip. C. Admit that you were the one who embezzled it, and then take advantage of the chaos to steal a roast chicken from the kitchen and run. Option C. Still that familiar taste. Steal a roast chicken and run. Run where? Roaming the cultivation world with a roast chicken? Option B. Lu Ping looked at it for 2 seconds. Expose the fat steward directly? Sounds very righteous, but the risk is too high. The fat steward has operated in the Black Tiger gang for many years. His foundation of connections is far beyond what he, a handyman, can compare to. Even if the exposure is successful, the fat steward falls. But what about the fat steward's people? What about the gang members who are in the same boat as the fat steward? He is a bottom-level slave with no backing, stabbing a hornet's nest. Even if the gang leader protects him, the gang leader can't watch him 24 hours a day. Option A. Passing the buck plus sycophancy. Double insurance. Isn't the pot about to smash on my head? I'll kick it away. Isn't the gang leader about to hold me accountable? I'll kneel and cry. Lu Ping chose A. Passing the buck trait activated. The pot was perfectly transferred. The text used a tone of near indifference to finish explaining the subsequent matters cleanly. The other kitchen helper was locked onto by your passing the buck trait. All account discrepancies. All evidence. In the process of the gang leader's investigation, mysteriously and all pointed to that kitchen helper. That kitchen helper couldn't defend himself, and the more he explained, the messier it got. Sycophancy trait activated. You knelt before the gang leader, tearing up and crying. You said you had worked in the kitchen for 5 years, never slacked off a single day. You ate whatever the steward gave you, never daring to take an extra cent. You said you were just a handyman, and didn't even know what the account book looked like. You said the gang leader was wise and powerful, and would surely get to the bottom of the truth. You were willing to stake your life as a guarantee. The gang leader patted your shoulder. Good kid. That framed kitchen helper was dragged to the backyard that night, and beaten to death. The fat steward wasn't held accountable, but the look he gave you changed. In that look, there was wariness, hatred, and a little bit of fear. Lu Ping stared at that last line of text. Another person died. Again because of him. The No. 9 slave in the mine. The person whose dry food he stole during the collapse. Now there's one more scapegoat he kicked over. This list is getting longer, but Lu Ping found his heartbeat was very steady, not numbness. It was something he learned starting from the mine tunnel in the first year. In this place, kindness is the most expensive consumable, and he couldn't afford to consume it. The text began to scroll in large blocks, compressing the next 11 years into a long annual report. 25 to 36 years old. Your position in the kitchen gradually stabilized. You were still the lowest level handyman, but at least not the kind that could be beaten to death at any time. You used every night to study the body tempering manual. 11 years as one day. You still couldn't understand it, but every character you could identify, you engraved into your bones. The traits kept generating over these years. They popped out one by one every year on the white background. Lu Ping scanned them, most without even the desire to look for a second. 26 years old. Receipt padding. D rank. Don't replace. 27 years old. Weekly report literature. D rank. Don't replace. 28 years old. Water dispenser changing. D rank. Don't replace. All junk. All D rank traits. It seems, Lu Ping's good luck, in the first 2 years, had already been used up. Then, 29 years old. 11 years of seniority. Trait generating. Congratulations on obtaining new trait. Salted fish. S rank. Your efficiency in doing any task will be halved, but you possess an indestructible Tao heart, immune to all PUA, coercion, inner demon intrusion, and your state state of mind will never collapse. Lu Ping was stunned. 11 years. Finally, an S rank appeared. Transmigration dog. Never a slave. However, this trait didn't look like much. The name wasn't cool. Which worker doesn't want to be a salted fish? Subsequently, Lu Ping's attention was nailed to the second half. Indestructible Dao heart. Immune to all PUA. State of mind never collapses. The first half is poison. Efficiency halved. Equivalent to being half a beat slow in doing everything. The second half is the antidote. In an environment where one could be driven insane by psychological torture at any time, an unbreakable heart is worth more than anything else. S rank. Salted fish is worth it. But replace who? Among the 3 trait slots. Sycophancy B rank. Scapegoat C rank. Passing the buck B rank. Sycophancy cannot be replaced. This is the foundation of his survival in the Black Tiger gang. Without it, the fat steward could kill him the next day. Scapegoat cannot be replaced. Although this trait is negative, although it was forcibly tied on during the mandatory equipment period. However, Lu Ping stared at the small text. For every mistake successfully shouldered, physical body constitution weakly enhanced. 11 years of pots shouldered down. His resistance to beatings was already several times stronger than when he first entered the kitchen. Lu Ping's fantasy about scapegoat actually came true. Passing the buck. Lu Ping waited for 3 seconds. Passing the buck is good to use. Very good to use. These years, he relied entirely on it to kick away deadly pots. Only then not being killed by the fat steward. But the fat steward, after the incident when he was 24, already dared not easily move against him. The wariness was there. In the coming years, the probability of deadly pots being smashed over was decreasing. Replace. Passing the buck has been unequipped. Salted fish has been equipped. Current equipment. Sycophancy. Scapegoat. Salted fish. Lu Ping stared at this new combination. Sycophancy for saving life. Scapegoat for beating and increasing constitution. Salted fish for protecting mindset. One for flattering. One for shouldering the pot. One for being a loafer. If he told anyone, nobody would believe this was a life-saving configuration. The text continued to push forward. 30 years old. Screen peeping. D rank. Don't replace. 31 years old. Ineffective meeting. D rank. Don't replace. 32 years old. PPT method. D rank. Don't replace. 33 years old. Reply received. D rank. Don't replace. The output ratio of junk traits remained stable. All D rank. The system's randomness was as disgusting as ever. It seemed like one S rank had used up Lu Ping's luck again. But the effect of the salted fish trait was solid. The fat steward pointed at your nose and cursed for a full hour in front of the gang members. Salted fish trait activated. Your state of mind didn't move an inch. You finished listening to all the insults kneeling, then stood up, patted the dirt off your knees, and turned back to the stove to continue tending the fire. The fat steward found that he couldn't curse you into moving. He started to be afraid. Lu Ping, in his heart, recorded a mark for the salted fish trait, depressed by his boss PUA in his past life. If he had this thing back then, at least he wouldn't have died of overwork at his workstation. The text rolled to 35 years old. Speed slowed down again. 36 years old. 18 years of seniority. The Black Tiger gang had a conflict with a surrounding sect. The gang leader ordered to draw personnel from various departments to act as frontline cannon fodder. The fat kitchen steward reported your name. Lu Ping wasn't surprised at all. After waiting for more than a decade, the fat steward finally waited for an opportunity to kill with a borrowed knife. No need to do it himself. No need to bear the risk. Only needing a written order to send him to the battlefield to die. Options popped up. A. Utilize the sycophancy trait. Go directly to the gang leader to beg for mercy, requesting to stay on the grounds of his importance to the kitchen. B. Do not resist. Obey the order to go to the front line, and then find an opportunity to escape on the battlefield. C. Directly steal a kitchen knife from the kitchen, and stab the fat steward first. Option A. Go to the gang leader to beg for mercy. Lu Ping deduced it in his mind. The gang leader indeed had a good impression of him, and the sycophancy trait could add a bonus. But the problem was that the gang leader was in the middle of a war, needing human lives to fill the front line. Going to say gang leader, I don't want to go at this time, is equivalent to resisting orders when the gang leader needs cannon fodder the most. Sycophancy can curry favor with superiors, but currying favor is not equal to defying orders. No matter how much the gang leader likes you, he wouldn't break military law for a handyman. And, even if the gang leader made an exception to keep him, the fat steward's attempt to kill with a borrowed knife failed. What about next time? What about the time after that? As long as he stayed in the Black Tiger gang, the fat steward would always have a chance. Option C. Stab the fat steward. It would be satisfying, but then what? The gang leader's men would chop him into mincemeat the next second. Option B. Go to the front line, and then run. The front line is hell, but beyond the boundaries of hell is freedom. Lu Ping chose option B. You did not resist. You took the order, packed up that body tempering manual from the stove brick crack, and followed a team of gray-faced cannon fodder toward the front line. The fat steward stood at the kitchen entrance, watching your back, and smiled. 36 years old. Frontline collapsed at the first touch. The Black Tiger gang's cannon fodder were torn apart by the other side's charging wave. The people around you fell in droves. You heard the sound of bones breaking, heard the screams, heard death that was denser, more desperate than in the mine. Your constitution, accumulated through years of shouldering blame, played a critical role. You survived the first wave of slaughter. And then, you played dead. You lay under 3 corpses, blood dripping from above, soaking through your clothes, your hair, the cracks in your mouth. You didn't move. You waited for 3 days and 3 nights. On the morning of the 4th day, the battlefield was quiet. You crawled out from the pile of corpses. The Black Tiger Gang is gone. Only these words remained on the white background. It stopped for 5 full seconds. Then new text slowly floated out. The triangular-eyed foreman who whipped you countless times is dead. The fat kitchen steward who embezzled and framed you for 11 years is dead. The gang leader who patted your shoulder and said good kid is also dead. You stand on a piece of scorched earth. Behind you is the thick smoke from the ruins of the Black Tiger Gang. In front of you is the vast wilderness. Your hand still clutches that body tempering manual. The pages soaked in blood and muddy water. But you never let go. System prompt popped up. Gray border. Text one size smaller than normal story text. Small font culture. Ubiquitous. Detected host has left the Black Tiger Gang. Black Workshop Company. Automatic resignation process started. Note. Exceeding 1 year since leaving the organization. Seniority will be interrupted. And no more traits will be generated. Distance to automatic resignation. 364 days. You are now a vagrant with unidentified identity. Possessing nothing but a rotten book. And a body full of bloodstains. No one will take in someone like you. But, you did not panic. You spent 18 years in the Black Tiger Gang. From mine to kitchen. From being whipped to shouldering black pots. From stealing half a ration of dry food to kicking away a human life. 18 years of surviving taught you one thing. Only being alive is useful. And, salted fish makes your mindset even steadier. The text slowly floated out a set of options on the white background. You have 3 paths in front of you. A. Head east. Head toward the nearest secular town. Find a job to resume seniority first. B. Head north. You vaguely remember. There seems to be an outer peripheral stronghold of a low-level cultivation sect in the north. C. Head south. It is said there is a place in the south hiring people. The recruitment notice says high pay, little work, close to home. 3 options, representing 3 paths. Lu Ping's attention stayed on C for 0.5 seconds. High pay, little work, close to home. Seeing these 6 characters on a recruitment website in his past life. Once you enter, it's either MLM or fraud. In this life, having changed to another world, the pattern is actually exactly the same. Option A, secular town. Safe, but the ceiling is too low. Resuming seniority is no problem. But if he nests in the secular world for a lifetime, that body tempering manual will always be a pile of wasted paper he can't understand. Option B, cultivation sect. Dangerous, and completely unknown. A mortal running into the territory of a cultivation sect is no different from a mouse breaking into a cat's den. Lu Ping chose A. He is now a 3-0 person with no cultivation, no resources, no background. What is he going to the sect with? His face? Lu Ping still remembered how Luoxia village was destroyed. This is a cultivation world where human lives are as cheap as mustard. Live first. Resume seniority first. Save up traits first. What's the rush? He, Lu Ping, has a simulator. You chose A. Head east. Head toward the nearest secular town. You start your journey. You have no dry food, no water bottle, no map. You only have a body tempering manual soaked in blood, and the stench of crawling out from a pile of corpses. You walked for 3 days, relying on chewing tree bark, and drinking creek water to sustain your life. You walked for 7 days. Blisters rubbed out 4 blood blisters on your soles. All burst. You walked for 15 days. You were so thin only a skeleton frame was left. The flesh on your face sunken, cheekbones protruding. Passerby hunters looked at you, and took a detour, but you were still walking. The salted fish trait continued to be effective. Your Dao heart didn't move an inch. You were so hungry you saw stars. The wounds on your soles tearing with every step. But in your mind, there was only one thought clearly. There is a town ahead. The 16th day, you saw cooking smoke. Qinglu Town. Lu Ping stared at these 3 characters. 3 dry, meager characters on the white background, but more beautiful than all the text he had ever seen in this life. The text continued to roll. Qinglu Town. Small secular town. Over 300 households. No cultivators stationed. No sect jurisdiction. There is a blacksmith shop in the east of the town. A pharmacy in the west. A gambling den in the middle of the town. Commodity prices are low. Public security is average. Suitable for surviving. You are penniless. Hungry to the point of being unable to stand steady. You need a job. You ask the restaurant. Don't want you. You ask the cloth shop. Don't want you. You ask the pharmacy. Don't want you. No one wanted a vagrant of unknown origin. So thin he was, unrecognizable, covered in the bloody smell of corpses. You stood at the door of Zhang's blacksmith shop in the east of the town. From inside came the sound of ding-dang hammering. An old man with a bare chest and disheveled beard was swinging a large hammer. You walked in. Boss, are you short of people? The old man sized you up from top to bottom, frowning. Have you worked as a blacksmith? No, but I can endure hardship. The old man looked at you again, this time looking at your hands. Thick calluses left by 18 years of mines and kitchens. Layer stacked on layer. The palm surface as rough as sandpaper. Provide meals. Do not provide housing. 30 copper coins per month. Do you work or not? I work. System prompt popped out. Gray border. Text standard and neat. Detected host has been employed. Zhang's blacksmith blacksmith shop, individual industrial and commercial household. Position, apprentice. Seniority resumed successfully. Automatic resignation countdown cancelled. The red countdown disappeared. Lu Ping let out a long breath. The 1-year deadline was resolved by the 30 copper coin monthly salary of a bare-chested old man. The text continued to roll, speed starting to accelerate. You settled down in the blacksmith shop. Old Zhang is a rough person, temper violent, voice loud, but he doesn't hit people under his hand. Every day he cursed you to a bloody pulp. After cursing, he pushed a bowl of rice in front of you. Eat. Lu Ping silently recorded a mark for old Zhang in his heart. The first person in 18 years who scolded him but didn't hit him. You learned blacksmithing, wielding hammers, pulling bellows, tending fire, quenching water. You discovered one thing: the sound of the blacksmith's hammer, and the rhythm of inducing chi described in the body tempering manual, had similarities. One hammer, one breath, one hammer, one breath. The vibration of every hammer falling would travel through the arm and spread through the whole body. The coordination between that vibration and breathing secretly matched. The chi follows force. Force originates from bones described in the book. Lu Ping's attention was completely focused. The core of the body tempering manual was tempering the flesh, and blacksmithing was the labor closest to body tempering in the secular world. 18 years of mine and kitchen work wasted. He should have come to the blacksmith shop long ago. The text rolled to the end of the year. 37 years old. 19 years of seniority. Trait generating. A gray border popped up. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Craftsmanship A rank. Any task you perform will be perfected to the extreme, with a quality far exceeding that of others. Lu Ping's breathing paused for half a beat. He scanned the description of this trait 3 times over. Any task, perfected to the extreme, far exceeding others. A rank. Truly deserved. Current trait equipment slots full. Current equipment. Sycophancy. Scapegoat. Salted fish. Do you want to replace? Replaceable trait. Craftsmanship. Sycophancy. Lu Ping stared at this trait. 19 years. From the first day in the mine, sycophancy had been his life-saving charm. The triangular-eyed foreman, the fat steward, the black tiger gang leader. Every single crisis that almost took his life, it was sycophancy that pulled him back. But he was no longer in the black tiger gang. Old Zhang was a rough man. If you flattered him, he would actually find you annoying. Qinglu town had no gangs, no foremen, no superiors who needed to be buttered up. The applicable scenario for sycophancy had been cleared to 0. Replace. Sycophancy has been unequipped. Craftsmanship has been equipped. Current equipment. Craftsmanship. Scapegoat. Salted fish. The effect was immediate. The text immediately fed back the changes. The craftsmanship trait took effect. The first kitchen knife you forged. Old Zhang stared at it for a long time without saying a word. The curve of the blade, the thickness of the blade back, the angle of the edge, everything was precise to the millimeter. Old Zhang had been a blacksmith for 40 years, and had never seen an apprentice forge such a knife on their first try. Have you really never forged iron before? Really never? Old Zhang looked at you again, but this time he wasn't looking at your hands. Lu Ping didn't care what old Zhang was looking at. What he cared about was something else. The text continued to scroll. You were somewhat eager to finish the day's work. Can't wait to verify that thing. That night, you opened the body tempering manual. The craftsmanship trait took effect. Those sentences that had been vague for over a decade suddenly became clear. It wasn't that the words had changed, but that your comprehension had changed. The meaning of every single character, precise, embedded into your cognition. The originally broken meridians began to reconnect section by section. You spent the whole night reviewing the first 3 chapters from beginning to end, gaining more insight than the past decade combined. The text began to scroll in large blocks. 37 to 39 years old seemed to be compressed into a quarterly report. 37 years old. You forge iron during the day and study the body tempering manual at night. Craftsmanship continues to take effect. The quality of your ironware gets higher and higher. Old Zhang begins to let you take jobs independently. Your monthly wage rose from 30 coins to 80 coins. 38 years old. 20 years of seniority. Trait generated. I don't want to work. D rank. No matter what you do, efficiency is halved. Don't replace. 39 years old. You recite the first 3 chapters of the body tempering manual by heart. For the missing parts of the 4th chapter, you begin trying to complete them with craftsmanship. Progress is slow, but there is progress. 39 years old. 21 years of seniority. Trait generated. Elevator encounter. D rank. You always encounter the people you least want to see in confined spaces like elevators, such as leaders, creditors. Don't replace. 40 years old. Old Zhang fell seriously ill, and you shouldered the entire blacksmith shop. People in town began to call you Blacksmith Lu. You forged every piece of ironware to the extreme. 40 years old. 22 years of seniority. Trait generated. Lunch break. D rank. You can rest for half an hour every noon, restoring your energy. Don't replace. The system lived up to expectations, stably producing D rank traits. 3 years passed. The core combination didn't move. Craftsmanship A rank. Scapegoat C rank. Salted fish S rank. The iron triangle. And then, 41 years old. 41 years old. 23 years of seniority. Trait generating. The white background flickered twice, and a gray border popped up. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Cost reduction and efficiency increase A rank. In everything you do, you can significantly reduce the consumption of costs, while simultaneously doubling the final effect and success. success rate. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Another A rank. Cost reduction and efficiency increase. Significantly reduce consumption. Double the effect. What kind of person was he? A zero-resource cultivator. What did he have? A broken manual, a hammer, and a body that had been worn down for over 20 years. What did he lack the most? Resources. What did he fear the most? Investing everything only to fail. This trait precisely plugged his biggest gap. Replace whom? Craftsmanship cannot be replaced. Without it, the work of completing the body tempering manual would stop directly. Salted fish cannot be replaced. This was his mental firewall. Over 20 years. How many times did he want to give up facing that broken book alone in the deep night? It was all thanks to the salted fish trait holding the bottom line. Scapegoat. Lu Ping stared at these three characters. From the kitchen at 19, Scapegoat had been welded onto him. 18 years of shouldering the pot had indeed increased his constitution quite a bit, but now he was in the blacksmith shop, and old Zhang didn't pass the buck, so the negative effects of Scapegoat were greatly reduced, and the positive gain had basically stopped. Replace. Scapegoat has been unequipped. Cost reduction and efficiency increase has been equipped. Current equipment. Craftsmanship. Cost reduction and efficiency increase. Salted fish. Lu Ping scanned the three traits on the white background. Craftsmanship. Doing things to the extreme. Cost reduction and efficiency increase. Doing the most with the least. Salted fish. Mindset steady as a rock. And craftsmanship seems to be able to neutralize the negative effects of salted fish. Nice. It's a pity the broken system isn't smart enough to provide an explanation. If he had these three traits in his past life, Lu Ping could at least have been a middle-level manager. The text began to scroll at high speed. The cost reduction and efficiency increase trait took effect immediately. You discovered many high-level materials can be replaced by the cheapest materials in the blacksmith shop. Pig iron forged through a special process, combined with a quenching liquid made from wild herbs dug up by the roadside. The daggers forged were sharper than top-grade daggers. Cost 200 coins. Effect far exceeding daggers on the market for 2 taels of silver. 200 coins. Lu Ping chewed over this number in his heart repeatedly. 200 coins in cost. 2,000 coins in effect. 10 times the cost effectiveness. When he was a corporate slave in his past life, the boss shouted about cost reduction and efficiency increase every day, shouting until his ears grew calluses. He didn't expect that after transmigrating, cost reduction and efficiency increase really became his core competitiveness. The text continued to push forward. 41 to 44 years old. You forge iron for 4 hours every day, and cultivate for 4 hours. Craftsmanship gave you a deeper and deeper understanding of the body tempering manual. Cost reduction and efficiency increase allowed you to temper your body with the cheapest medicinal herbs. Over 4 years, your body became tougher than when you were 20. The layer of window paper for inducing qi into the body became thinner and thinner. You could feel it, a faint power between heaven and earth, as you breathed, indistinctly brushing against your skin. You couldn't grasp it, but you knew it was there. 42 years old trait, working until sudden death. D rank. After long hours of overtime, there is a chance of sudden death. Don't replace. 43 years old trait, read but don't reply. D rank. For any information, you can selectively ignore it. Don't replace. 44 years old trait, free snacks. D rank. You can get a small amount of snacks every day. Don't replace. The output ratio of D rank traits remained stable. 45 years old trait, women's friend. A rank. The favorability of older sisters, sisters-in-law, aunts, and elderly ladies in the unit toward you will all increase. Of course, whether it's romantic or not, it's unknown. Lu Ping saw women's friend, and was slightly stunned. You broken system. Are you serious? Besides, how can this trait be A rank? The scrolling speed of the text slowed down suddenly. A line of text, popping out character by character. 46 years old. 28 years of seniority. Old Zhang died. Lu Ping stared at these 4 characters, stopping for 2 seconds. Old Zhang, that rough man with a bare chest, loud voice, violent temper, and who would push the rice bowl away after scolding people. In this world where people eat people, the only person who only scolded him but never hit him. The text didn't give him more room for sentiment. Old Zhang died of a serious illness in early spring at the age of 46. The blacksmith shop was inherited by old Zhang's nephew, Zhang Xiaolu. Zhang Xiaolu, 23 years old, a gambler, owing 300 taels of silver to Zhou Matzi, a local thug in Qinglu town. The day after Zhang Xiaolu inherited the blacksmith shop, he moved half of the valuable things in the shop to the gambling den to pay off his debts. On the 3rd day, Zhou Matzi's people came to the door. The text stopped. Then new content emerged line by line. The speed very slow. Zhou Matzi's men stood at the blacksmith shop entrance. A bald burly man, with a string of copper coins hanging around his neck, chewing a grass stem in his mouth, looking at you as if looking at livestock. Zhang Xiaolius debts. The shop isn't enough to pay them off. The people in the shop must also be folded in. Zhang Xiaolu huddled behind the counter, his face pale and blue, not daring to make a sound. The bald burly man walked toward you. Again this situation. Again the crisis of falling into slavery. 27 years. From the mine of the Black Tiger gang to this blacksmith shop, he spent 27 years. meters, walked a circle, and returned to the starting point. Options popped up. A. Pack up and run in the dark of night. Take the body tempering manual, and the meager savings accumulated over these years. Become a wanderer again. B. Utilize the cost reduction and efficiency increase trait. Forge a batch of high-quality ironware at an extremely low cost. Sell them directly to Zhou. Pay off Zhang Xiolius debt with the profits, and protect the blacksmith shop, and your own freedom. C. Go gamble with Zhang Xiaolu. If you win, turn the tables. If you lose, be sold together. Option C was as ridiculous as always. Lu Ping didn't even look at it. Option B. Lu Ping looked at it for 2 seconds. Cost reduction and efficiency increase plus craftsmanship. Forge a batch of top-quality ironware to sell to Zhou. Theoretically feasible. But the problem is, Zhou is a local thug. You use top-quality ironware to pay off Zhang Xiolius debt. What will Zhou think? A blacksmith who can forge top-quality ironware is 10,000 times more valuable than a blacksmith shop. Zhou won't let him go. Zhou will keep Lu Ping, turning him into another form of slave. From a mine slave to a blacksmith slave, just changing cages. Lu Ping chose A. You didn't hesitate. That night, the bald burly man and his men were drinking in the main room. Zhang Xiaolu kneeling by the table fawning. No one noticed the movement in the backyard. You dug out the body tempering manual from under the stove, stuffed it into your bosom, dug out the 113 copper coins saved over 9 years from under the bedboard, tied them to your waist, put on those cloth shoes with worn-out soles, and climbed over the low wall in the backyard. When you left, you glanced back at the blacksmith shop. The fire in the furnace hadn't gone out yet. The red light leaking from the window cracks, reflecting on the bluestone road. You turned your head, and strode toward the outside of the town. System prompt popped out. Cold gray border. Detected host has left Zhang's blacksmith shop. Individual industrial and commercial household. Automatic resignation process started. Distance to automatic resignation. 364 days. Another year. The countdown lit up again. The red numbers hung in the center of the white background, jumping down day by day. Lu Ping didn't panic. He had run once already. Last time he ran out of the ruins of the Black Tiger Gang, hungry for 16 days, before reaching Qinglu town. This time, at least he had 113 coins. The text began to scroll at high speed. Large blocks of content poured out. 46 years old. You found a job as a porter in the neighboring Liuhe town. Employment successful. Seniority continued. 47 years old. The porter agency went bankrupt. You became unemployed. Countdown restarted. You spent 3 months finding a new job at a pharmacy in Heen town. Pharmacy handyman. Employment successful. 48 years old. The pharmacy owner thought you were too old. Fired you. Countdown restarted. You walked 2 towns. Became a night watchman at Baiyang Ferry. Employment successful. Every time he resigned, the countdown restarted. Every time he got a job, the countdown was cancelled. Repeating back and forth, between the red numbers, and the gray border. The window paper was getting thinner and thinner, but it never pierced through. Traits continued to generate. Junk every year. He never replaced them. Craftsmanship. Cost reduction and efficiency increase. Salted fish. The iron triangle remained motionless. The text rolled to 58 years old. The speed slowed down abruptly. 1 character at a time, popping out. 58 years old. Winter. You stayed overnight in a ruined temple on a barren mountain. You were already old. Hair gray. Face full of wrinkles. But your body was unusually tough. 9 years of blacksmithing plus the cheap medicinal baths from cost reduction and efficiency increase tempered your flesh to a level far exceeding ordinary people. You sat cross-legged in front of the mud Buddha statue in the ruined temple, spreading that body tempering manual that had been flipped until it was shredded in front of you. The edges of the pages were all curled up, filled with annotations you made with charcoal sticks. A snowstorm raged outside. 3 holes leaking in the roof of the ruined temple. Snowflakes drifting in from the holes, falling on your shoulders, turning into water. You felt it. That layer of window paper. Right tonight. 40 years. From the age of 18 when you dug out this broken book in the mine kitchen, to now at 58 sitting on the ground of the ruined temple. 40 years. You spent 40 years, finally touching the threshold of cultivation. The text began to scroll at high speed, compressing the final closing. 58 years old. You relied on the constitution of the body tempering stage to barely sustain your life in the ruined temple. The chronic injuries were devouring your vitality every day. You could feel your lifespan passing day by day. You memorized the mental method of the body tempering manual from beginning to end, engraving it in the deepest part of your memory. The wind and snow grew heavier. You leaned against the mud Buddha statue, and closed your eyes. With the death of Lu Ping in the simulator, all text disappeared. The white background was blank for 5 full seconds. Then, the settlement screen exploded. Data poured down like a waterfall, covering the entire field of view densely. Simulation ended. This simulation duration, 40 years. Total traits generated, 41 pieces. Final inherited traits, 41 pieces. Current equipment, craftsmanship, cost reduction and efficiency increase. Salted fish, trait library, sycophancy, scapegoat, passing the buck, paid pooping. Name tag, inherited cultivation. Initial body tempering stage, inherited technique. Body tempering manual, incomplete. Inherited memory, complete 40 years of life memory. 40 years of hammering to forge an iron body. body, salted fish craftsman, true Tao heart, wind, snow, ruined temple, stealing heaven's secret, broken body finally steps into the door of longevity. Then, all text shattered simultaneously, white light smashed down on his head, exactly the same as when he arrived. In the next instant, the damp, moldy air rushed into his nasal cavity, smell of rust, sweet greasiness of rotting flesh, and the crisp sound of a whip exploding in the distance. Mine tunnel no. 3. The pickaxe was still raised in midair, the pick point less than 3 inches from the rock wall. Lu Ping's body stiffened slightly. Then, a surge of warm power rushed out from the depths of his dantian, slowly circulating along his 4 limbs and 100 bones. The bones hummed silently, muscles tightened, and a thread of extremely weak but real spiritual energy circulated back and forth in his meridians. Initial body tempering stage, 40 years of bitter struggle, 58 years of life, compressed into this one moment. And, before his eyes, his own information column appeared. Name, Lu Ping, age 18, cultivation, initial body tempering stage, technique, body tempering manual, incomplete copy, magic treasure, none, current equipment traits, craftsmanship, cost reduction and efficiency increase, salted fish, trait library, sycophancy, scapegoat, passing the buck, paid pooping, name tag, return from simulation, trait library updated, 41 pieces, allows one-time reconfiguration of equipped traits, current equipment slots. Do you want to change traits? In the simulator, you can only change traits once a year. Ending the simulation gives you one chance to change, and, the number of keepable traits became 4. That is to say, after stepping from mortal into the body tempering stage, the number of trait equipment slots increased by 1. Lu Ping chose to change. Salted fish must be kept. Cost reduction and efficiency increase, and craftsmanship are good, but those are traits for peaceful periods. In this precarious mine tunnel, survive first. So, sycophancy and passing the buck are the life-saving traits for the current stage. What to bring for the 4th one? Finally, Lu Ping chose women's friend. Selecting women's friend, just because it's an A-rank trait. That's how it is. Lu Ping convinced himself. The equipped traits became sycophancy B rank, passing the buck B rank, salted fish S rank, women's friend A rank. Lu Ping's hands held the pickaxe firmly, the webbing of his thumb and forefinger smooth, no cracks, palms dry, no sweat. 3 steps away, the triangular-eyed foreman was wiping blood off the whip with a dirty rag. Lu Ping took a glance at him. Immortal, bones fragile, muscles lax, old injury on the right knee, left shoulder slightly higher than the right shoulder. That was an occupational disease from long-term whipping. The perception of the initial body tempering stage poured all this information into his brain in an instant. Every weakness on the triangular-eyed foreman was as clear as if a bullseye had been drawn on it. Lu Ping exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He raised the pickaxe again, his movements even humbler than before, even more cowardly, the arc of his waist perfectly judged, even the curve of his back carrying an instinctual submission. But this time, the force of the pickaxe striking the rock wall was precise to the millimeter, neither more nor less, just the amount of strength an ordinary slave should have. The system's blue panel hung quietly at the edge of his vision, with a line of new gray text, flashing unhurriedly. KPI task issued, pass the probation period. Gain official status within the Black Tiger Gang, and shake off the slave job rank. Task reward, second simulation attempt unlocked. Draw D rank or above trait attempt *1. The triangular-eyed foreman's whip snapped in the air again. Lu Ping's back shrank slightly, the perfect amount of fear. However, Lu Ping's face, with his head lowered, had no expression at all. Lu Ping swung the pick again, a few gravel bits popping out of the rock wall, splashing onto his face. He blinked, gravel splashing on his face. Fine stinging pain. Lu Ping didn't raise his hand to wipe it. The perception of the initial body tempering stage was already far beyond that of a mortal. The texture of the load-bearing timber, the dark crack extending from the top left to the bottom right on the rock wall, the mortise and tenon joint of the 3rd horizontal beam on his head cracked by nearly 2 fingers wide. All this information, things it took him a year to slowly figure out in the simulator, now flooded his brain in one glance. The crack in the beam. Lu Ping's pickaxe mechanically struck the rock wall. The rhythm unchanged, the force unchanged. However, his peripheral vision had been hanging on that crack. In the simulator, this horizontal beam would break this evening. That old slave who gave him a kindly reminder was pinned by the falling debris. Then, a larger stone smashed his neck. In the simulator, Lu Ping grabbed his clothes, only pulling out half a piece of blood-stained coarse hemp cloth. The pickaxe fell again, sparks flying out, illuminating Lu Ping's face. He began to nudge toward old slave Sun Bo's side. Lu Ping nudged half a foot to the right for every 3 strikes of the pickaxe, moving after about 20 strikes, and the distance between him and Sun Bo shrunk to within 1 arm's length. Sun Bo was still in his half-dead state, wielding his pickaxe listlessly restlessly, every strike as if he were negotiating with the rock wall. Lu Ping lowered his voice, squeezing it through his teeth, even lighter than a whisper. Follow me. 3 words. Sun Boss pickaxe paused for a moment, an almost imperceptible pause, but Lu Ping captured it. The old man's turbid eyeballs, almost blind, rolled, not looking at him, nor opening his mouth, but his withered twig-like fingers trembled on the handle of the pick. Then he started striking the mine again. Time passed pick by pick. Lu Ping, while striking, counted down in his heart. Now it was afternoon. Sunlight slanted in from the mine entrance, casting a longer and longer shadow on the ground. When the shadow reached the 4th pillar of the mine tunnel, it would be about dusk. The shadow was now at the 2nd pillar. About an hour left. Lu Ping slowed down the frequency of striking the mine. His position, about 7 steps away from the horizontal beam about to snap. 7 steps. For a martial artist at the initial body tempering stage, 1 breath was enough. The shadow crawled to the 3rd pillar, and the 4th pillar. A muffled sound came from deep in the mine tunnel. Very light, like something snapping inside the rock layer. Ordinary people couldn't hear it, but this sound, to Lu Ping, who was already at the body tempering stage, especially while deliberately capturing it, was clearly audible. The mine tunnel support structure began to lose balance. Lu Ping's pickaxe didn't stop. The rhythm unchanged, the force unchanged, but Sun Bo was 2 steps to his right, bending over, knocking one by one. Shadow reached the 3rd pillar, and between the 4th pillar, the 2nd muffled sound came, louder than the 1st. This time, the other slaves in the mine also heard it. A young slave looked up, blankly looking at his head. Another stopped his work entirely, taking half a step back. The triangular-eyed foreman's whip immediately snapped in the air. Who let you stop? Keep digging. The young slave shrank his neck, and hurriedly wielded his pickaxe again. Then the 3rd sound came, a sharp, piercing snapping sound. At the mortise and tenon joint of the horizontal beam overhead, the crack expanded from 2 fingers wide to a fist wide, fine wood chips and mud falling down in flurries, hitting Lu Ping's shoulder. Everyone stopped. The triangular-eyed foreman's whip, raised halfway, also stopped. Then, the horizontal beam broke. Run! Someone shouted this. The mine tunnel exploded. Slaves threw their pickaxes and ran toward the exit, pushing each other, trampling each other. The triangular-eyed foreman reacted the fastest, whipping a slave who was blocking his way and flying off, turning and running toward the mine tunnel exit. Falling rocks began to smash down. A fist-sized stone flew past Sun Bo's shoulder, shattering into 3 pieces on the ground. Sun Bo was old now, his reaction very slow. In the simulator, the next rock smashed into his leg, then the larger one smashed his neck. Lu Ping moved. He didn't run toward the mine tunnel exit. He rushed toward the opposite direction of Sun Bo, directly under the falling horizontal beam. The half-broken horizontal beam was falling, carrying the weight of the entire rock layer above it, near 1,000 gen of weight. An ordinary person would have only one result from catching it, being pressed into mincemeat. But Lu Ping was no longer an ordinary person. He was a martial artist at the body tempering stage. Resisting 1,000 gen was no problem. Furthermore, decades of being a scapegoat made Lu Ping's constitution even higher than that of an average body tempering stage practitioner. Crisis is opportunity. To complete the KPI task, it depended on this time. Lu Ping raised his arms, his 10 fingers hooking into the wood grain cracks at the bottom of the horizontal beam, pressing his entire center of gravity to the lowest. His waist and legs stretched into a straight line. The spiritual energy of the body tempering stage surged out from the dantian, pouring into his limbs. The moment the horizontal beam crashed down, Lu Ping's soul sank half an inch into the rock ground. His knees bent, his spine emitting a series of fine clicking sounds at the moment of bearing weight. Each section seemed to be protesting, but each section held up. He held it up. Even, he had some spare strength. Body tempering stage was no longer an ordinary person. Lu Ping with traits was even less of an ordinary body tempering stage. The weight of the entire horizontal beam pressed on his shoulders and back. Lu Ping gritted his teeth, veins on his neck bulging one by one. Go! He roared, his throat cracking. Sun Bo was stunned for a breath. After a breath, a light flashed in the old man's turbid eyeballs, and he sprinted toward the mine tunnel exit. The other slaves who hadn't run out also reacted. 1, 2, 3, bent over and crawled out from under the horizontal beam held by Lu Ping, crawling out for their lives. Falling rocks were still falling. Fortunately, no large stones hit him. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. The last slave rolled out from under the horizontal beam. Lu Ping saw there were no more living people in the mine tunnel, pushed the horizontal beam sideways by half a foot with a violent surge of his arms, and lunged toward the mine tunnel exit. The horizontal beam collapsed completely, smashing down with half the rock wall. Dust rushed out of the mine tunnel exit, choking everyone outside until they couldn't open their eyes. Lu Ping lay on the rubble at the mine tunnel exit, revealing a look of near exhaustion. He rolled over, facing the sky. Living is great. Strength is great. That kid. The triangular-eyed foreman stood 10 steps away, the dirty rag for wiping the whip held in his hand, clutched into wrinkles. He stared in the direction of Lu Ping, his mouth opening, without closing. A mine slave, with bare hands holding up the horizontal beam of a tunnel collapse. A dead heavy piece of timber that 3 burly men couldn't move together. This kid held it with 2 arms for a quarter of an hour. The triangular-eyed foreman had lived over 30 years, seen over 100 people die under his whip, and had never seen such such a thing. The commotion at the mine was too big. Half an hour later, the Black Tiger gang came. It was a confidant of the second leader, a middle-aged man with a bushy beard, a Huan-head blade tucked in his waist. When walking, his footsteps were light and steady. The bushy-bearded man swept a glance at the collapsed mine tunnel exit, then swept a glance at Lu Ping lying on the ground, and finally looked at the triangular-eyed foreman. What happened? The triangular-eyed foreman told the story, and when he got to the part where Lu Ping held up the horizontal beam, his voice lowered involuntarily, carrying a kind of awe he hadn't noticed himself. The bushy-bearded man didn't speak, walking up to Lu Ping, looking down at him for 2 seconds, and stood up. Lu Ping crawled up from the ground, his movements neither fast nor slow, his spine slightly bent, his head pressed very low. The bushy-bearded man looked him over from top to bottom. What's your name? Reporting to the boss. Kid's name is Lu Ping. A very ordinary sentence, but the sycophancy trait was activated in the instant these words came out. The tone, the rhythm, the arc of the waist, the angle of raising his head, every detail was calibrated to the most comfortable position by the trait, neither humble nor arrogant, and with exactly the right amount of respect. The bushy-bearded man's right eyelid twitched. The way this kid spoke didn't seem like a mine slave, but couldn't say where it wasn't like one. Not bad strength. Reporting to the boss. I did heavy labor when I was young, got used to being thick-skinned and tough. The bushy-bearded man snorted. He didn't ask again. When he walked away, he dropped a sentence. Bring this person to see the gang leader. The triangular-eyed foreman's face twitched, but he didn't dare say a word, bowing his waist and responding. Yes. The gang leader met Lu Ping in the main hall of the main courtyard of the Black Tiger gang. A burly man in his 50s, sitting in a great teacher's chair, left hand resting on the chair arm, right hand holding a bowl of tea. When Lu Ping entered the room, the gang leader was looking down and blowing the tea foam, without even raising his eyelids. It's you? Reporting to the gang leader. It's this kid. The sycophancy trait was activated again. The gang leader raised his head, squinted and sized him up for a few seconds, then set down the teacup. I heard you held up the horizontal beam in mine tunnel no. 3 alone, saving 7 or 8 people. Reporting to the gang leader. Kid's life is just hard, hardly worth the word save. The mine tunnel is full of the gang's manpower. Kid didn't dare watch the gang leader's livelihood get folded in. When this sentence came out of Lu Ping's mouth, even he felt disgusted, but the gang leader's corners of the mouth moved slightly. A very subtle change. A good talker, after all. The gang leader lifted the teacup and took another sip. What did you do before? Farmed. After the village was gone, I was brought here. The gang leader looked at Lu Ping twice more. From today on, you don't need to go to the mine. Lu Ping bowed and saluted. Thank you for the meal. Gang leader. The gang leader waved his hand. Go find manager Lu to register. Get yourself enrolled as a gang member. Do a good job, and there will be rewards. If you don't. Before he could finish, as Lu Ping exited the main hall, the sunlight in the courtyard made him squint his eyes. Then, a blue panel popped up. KPI task completed. Probation period ends. You have officially obtained the status of a Black Tiger gang member. You are no longer a slave rank. Task reward. Second simulation attempt unlocked. Do you want to start the second life simulation immediately? Yes. No. Lu Ping ignored the system's prompt and walked towards the residence assigned to him. His steps were steady, and there was no expression on his face. Passing gang members glanced at him, seeing only a lean young man, head bowed, shoulders hunched. A new recruit just brought up from the mines, nothing worth a second look. Soon, Lu Ping reached his residence. The door closed. The room was tiny, with a wooden bed, a tattered cotton quilt, and a chipped pottery bowl. It was better than the mine tunnel, but worse than the kitchen. Lu Ping sat on the bed bored. Something was wrong. Ordinary gang members all lived in communal dorms. Although this was essentially a woodshed, it was a single room. The gang leader's treatment of him was peculiar. There was no special importance attached, yet he was distinguished from the ordinary gang members. Lu Ping felt secretly vigilant. He couldn't drag this out. He couldn't give the gang leader ample time to deal with him. Lu Ping focused his attention on the blue, yes, white light crashed down upon him, then shattered. Familiar black characters popped out one by one from the center, with the rhythm of an old-fashioned typewriter. Simulation begins. You are Lu Ping, 18 years old, an official member of the Black Tiger gang. Early stage of body tempering. KPI reward received. Extracting KPI reward. KPI reward generating. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Water cooler gossip, grade D. When you are in the tea room or any place with a water source, you can automatically acquire the latest gossip and confidential information within a 500-meter radius. Currently equipped traits. Sucking up, grade B. Passing the buck, grade B. Salted fish, grade S. Women's friend, grade A. Do you want to replace one? Lu Ping remembered it was a KPI task reward, a guaranteed draw of grade D or higher, so it was just a participation prize. He thought. No, you chose, no. You were arranged to live in an independent woodshed behind the main courtyard. There are no guards outside the door, but the breathing of 3 secret sentries above the courtyard wall is clearly audible. Lu Ping stared at the last line of text. The gang leader giving him a single room wasn't special treatment. It was to isolate him for observation. No different from a monkey kept in a cage, just missing a sign on the woodshed door saying, pending. In the first simulation, he was transferred from the mine to the kitchen but never enjoyed single-room treatment. Back then, he was just a slave with a sweet tongue. The gang leader didn't even have the interest to look at him twice. This time it was different. He carried the crossbeam and exposed strength he shouldn't have had. The gang leader wasn't a fool. The text continued to scroll. Night fell. Just as you were about to lie down on the bedboard, the door was knocked. The visitor was the scruffy-bearded man, who said, "The gang leader is hosting a banquet and invites you over to sit." In the main hall of the Black Tiger gang, there was an 8-immortal table with 4 dishes and 2 pots of wine. The gang leader sat at the head. The scruffy-bearded man stood by the door, his hand on his sword. Only 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks were on the table. Options popped up. A. Sit down calmly. Activate sucking up throughout, and respond with the most respectful demeanor. B. Kneel at the door, expressing that your status is too low to share a table with the gang leader. C. Turn and run. Flee the Black Tiger gang, and join the Labor Arbitration Commission overnight. Labor arbitration. He hadn't succeeded in that in his previous life, and he couldn't hope for it in this one. In the world of cultivation, the arbitration committee was likely the one with the biggest fists. Option B. Kneeling at the door was too deliberate. The gang leader had just promoted you. Kneeling at the door to play the victim wasn't humility. It was being guilty. Guilty people are the easiest to be targeted. Option A. Sit down calmly. The sucking up trait could calibrate every detail of his behavior. Sitting with dignity was safer than kneeling in humility. Lu Ping chose A. You walked into the main hall, neither fast nor slow. Your waist was hunched by 30%, and your face wore a just right amount of caution. The sucking up trait was in full operation. Your stance, sitting posture, the angle of holding the cup, and even your chewing frequency were all calibrated to the state most comfortable for a superior. The gang leader started chatting. Where is your hometown? How many people in your family? How did you get to Luoxia village? Each question was very casual, but the interval between each question was precisely 3 breaths. He was observing your micro-expressions when answering. The sucking up trait continued to run. Every answer, your speech speed, pauses, and gaze placement were all precisely calibrated. You said you were an orphan from Luoxia village. Parents died early, raised by neighbors' charity. On the day the village was slaughtered, you were on the mountain cutting firewood. By the time you returned, it was a ruin. You were picked up by the Black Tiger gang and thrown into the mine. The gang leader listened and laughed. The gang leader's smile faded. A farming orphan who can hold up the crossbeam of the no. 3 mine collapse. Your strength is real, and your mouth is real. But when both appear on the same person, it becomes fake. The gang leader stood up. His aura shifted sharply. The pressure of the late body tempering stage crushed down from the front. The air became heavy, and the wine in the cups rippled. Kid, let me ask you one more time. Where did your strength come from? The salted fish trait activated automatically. The mental pressure was perfectly immunized. Your heartbeat didn't accelerate, your pupils didn't dilate, and your back didn't hunch further. But the gap at the physical level was real. Early stage versus late stage, what separated them wasn't a hurdle, but a wall. The gang leader attacked. No warning, no build-up. The gang leader slapped your shoulder. This palm wasn't fast, and the force was restrained. Options popped up. A. Take the blow head-on, using the physique enhanced by the scapegoat trait. B. Counter with the body tempering technique, exposing the fact that you know how to cultivate. C. Shout, let's talk this out. A gentleman speaks and doesn't resort to violence. There was nothing to hesitate about. Lu Ping chose B. You dodged the gang leader's first strike to the side. A spark of something new appeared in the gang leader's eyes. So you really practice. The second strike followed immediately, 30% faster than the first. You barely dodged again, but the palm wind grazed your shoulder, causing your entire arm to go numb instantly. The third strike, you didn't dodge. The gang leader's hand gripped your throat and pressed you onto the 8-immortal table. The wine pot tipped, and the wine spilled down the edge of the table, soaking the back of your head. You withstood 3 strikes under the gang leader. Early stage versus late stage, withstanding 3 strikes was already beyond the gang leader's expectations. His fingers tightened on your throat by a fraction, then relaxed. 3 strikes. Lu Ping noted the number in his heart. In his first simulation, he died after reaching the early body tempering stage. After exiting the simulation, he hadn't had a chance to test his strength, so he was a cultivator with a level but no actual combat experience. Being subdued in 3 strikes wasn't shameful. Body tempering, early stage. The gang leader's voice came from above your head. An 18-year-old village orphan. Early stage of body tempering. His fingers tightened again. Who is your master? Just as the gang leader's fingers were about to tighten again, the door to the main hall was kicked open from the outside. Door? Lu Ping, reading the text, was slightly stunned. This scene didn't happen in the first simulation. In the first simulation, he had huddled in the kitchen for 18 years, never even entering the gang leader's main hall, let alone knowing who would dare kick the gang leader's door at such a time. The text struck with a nearly cinematic speed, unloading the information of the person arriving. A massive figure blocked the doorway. To be precise, it filled the doorway. A woman, broad of body and fat of limb, weighing at least 300 pounds, wearing a purple brocade robe embroidered with golden peonies, a short blade tucked at her waist. Her head was covered in pearls and emeralds that clattered as she moved. Her face was so round it occupied 80% of her head, but her 2 eyes were unusually small, so small small they were almost squeezed out by the 2 mounds of cheek meat. The Black Tiger Gang's third leader, Qian Cuihua. Lu Ping sifted through the name in his heart. Qian Cuihua appeared as background information in the first simulation. The Black Tiger Gang's third leader. The gang leader's sworn younger sister. Everyone in the gang called her third sister, but no one dared call her by her real name to her face. It was said that she had killed many people when she was young. Big brother, what's all the racket at this late hour? I was in the middle of a facial treatment. Qian Cuihua's voice shook the ripples in the remaining wine on the table. She cursed while walking inside. Her footsteps were heavy, and the ground trembled slightly. Then, she saw Lu Ping, who was being pressed onto the table by the gang leader. She stopped. The women's friend trait activated. Lu Ping stared at these words. A bizarre premonition crawled up from the base of his spine. When he equipped this trait, he thought about increasing favorability with the aunts and big sisters at work, hoping they could help in critical moments. But he forgot one thing. The women's friend trait never distinguished what the object looked like. Qian Kuihua's small eyes suddenly widened by half a point. She scrutinized Lu Ping for 3 seconds, pressed onto the table, the back of his head soaking in wine, his face pale, finger marks on his neck. He looked miserable to the extreme. But Qian Kuihua's gaze slid slowly down from Lu Ping's face, shoulders, arms, waistline, finally stopping at his forearm, which was slightly tensed from struggling. She swallowed a gulp of saliva. Lu Ping stared at these last 7 words, his entire body stiffening. Wait, hold on. The description of the women's friend trait was that favorability increased, not that it generated romantic love. But what was the last sentence of the description? Of course, whether it is romantic love or not. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Qian Kuihua's gaze remained hooked on his forearm. The black text on white background was dry and plain, but Lu Ping's scalp was already beginning to go numb. Then, a new line of text slowly floated up from the bottom. Qian Cuihua spoke. Big brother, who is this little lad? Her voice was 3 full degrees lower than before. The gang leader's face darkened, but he didn't lash out. Qian Cuihua was the third leader, raising over 40 thugs, managing all the gang's finances and logistics. More importantly, her cultivation was not much lower than the gang leader's. The 300-pound frame was not fat, it was closely related to the cultivation technique she practiced. In terms of actual power within the gang, she was second only to the gang leader himself. The gang leader could kill any gang member, but he needed to give Qian Cuihua face. The gang leader's fingers stopped. Qian Cuihua spoke again. Since big brother doesn't want the little lad to drink with you, let the little lad drink tea with me. Options popped up. A. Go with the third leader. Drink tea in the third leader's courtyard. B. Refuse, and die with dignity. C. Hug the gang leader's thigh and beg him to take you in. Lu Ping stared at the 3 options. Option B. Die with dignity. And then what? Qian Cuihua had 40 thugs under her, and her power was second only to the gang leader. He couldn't beat the gang leader. So could he beat Qian Cuihua? Option C. Give up entirely. Lu Ping chose A. You chose A. You stood up and bowed to the gang leader. Gang leader, please forgive me. This little one will take his leave. The gang leader didn't look at you. He was drinking tea. Qian Kuihua's mouth curled higher. She stepped aside, clearing the path at the door, and gestured outward. Let's go, little lad. You followed the third leader through 3 courtyards. Every time you passed a gate, the expression of the guards looking at you changed. The guards at the first gate were dazed. Those at the second were sympathetic. The guard at the third gate turned his face straight to the wall, his shoulders shaking, indistinguishable whether he was holding back laughter or trembling. You arrived at the largest room in the back courtyard. The room was lit with incense, draped in red silk, with 4 plates of snacks and a pot of wine on the table. Qian Cuihua waved at you. Come, sit. The women's friend trait continued to run. The sucking up trait continued to run. You sat down. Qian Kuihua's hand reached over. The text paused for 3 seconds. The white background was empty. Nothing at all. Then, a line of text slowly floated up. The following events are redacted by 50,000 words. Lu Ping didn't know if he wanted to see these redacted 50,000 words or not. You survived. The price was that your dignity was shattered into pieces. But the salted fish trait gathered all the fragments up. Your Taoist heart remained unshaken. Lu Ping discovered that the salted fish trait had a completely new use in this kind of situation. Immunity to mental trauma. No matter what happened, his mentality remained as steady as an old dog. If he had this trait in his previous life, he wouldn't have even needed the courage to resign. If a client called his plan garbage, if his boss scolded him for poor performance, he could smile and take it. Anyway, his Taoist heart wouldn't break. Let them scold. The text continued to scroll. Afterward, Qian Cuihua leaned on the chaise longue, her face radiant, her favorability toward you soaring to an outrageous height. With the women's friend trait overlapping with the sucking up trait, both buffs fully enabled. Every sentence you spoke she found pleasant. Every action you took she found thoughtful. Qian Cuihua started chatting with you. Little lad, you were in the mine before. The mine is so bitter. Big sister feels sorry for you. Don't go down the mine anymore. Follow big sister, and no one will dare bully you. You timely revealed a look of deep gratitude. The sucking up trait made this expression precise to the point of being impeccable. Qian Cuihua slapped her thigh, accurately speaking. The rolls of fat on her thigh rippled 3 times. What are you afraid of? With big sister here, no one will dare touch a hair on your head. She made the decision on the spot, enrolling you into her own logistics team, directly separating you from the gang leader's direct management. Lu Ping silently upgraded the women's friend trait from trash to usable in his heart. Although the usage was extremely bizarre, the results were solid. Before dawn, you emerged from the third leader's courtyard. The morning wind blew on your face, chilling. Your steps were steady, your collar neat. The guard at the third gate saw you come out. His mouth opened and closed. Then he turned his head away, pretending not to see anyone passing. You returned to the woodshed. You pushed the door open, and the faint light of dawn leaked in through the window slit, pulling a narrow, bright line on the floor. There was an extra cloth bundle under the pillow. You opened the bundle. Inside were 3 dark red pills as big as a thumb and a note. The note had 4 words scrawled crookedly. Nourish your body. Signed with a crudely drawn peony flower. Inferior body tempering pill. Market value about 50 taels each. 3 pills. 150 taels. In the first simulation, Lu Ping worked in the blacksmith shop for a year and only made 3 or 4 taels of silver. Qian Kuihua's single gesture was worth 50 years of his labor. More importantly, it was a body tempering pill, a cultivation resource. The essence of cultivation is resources, and you just used one night to pry open the door to the Black Tiger Gang's biggest treasure vault. The price? Forget it. Don't think about it. The salted fish trait had already packed and sealed those parts of his memory. That night, you took the first inferior body tempering pill. The speed of spiritual energy circulating in your meridians was twice that of a normal practitioner. After the cultivation ended, you were so tired you rolled off the bedboard and lay on the ground for a full hour before crawling up. But the effect was real. One night's cultivation was equal to half a month for an ordinary body tempering practitioner. You originally wanted to find a chance to flee, but you stayed by Qian Kuihua's side as if by some divine guidance. You shamefully succumbed to an inferior body tempering pill. The following days were lived between the gang leader's suspicion and the third leader's coddling. The gang leader didn't come to drink with you again, but the secret sentries around your woodshed increased from 3 to 5. The third leader would send a maid to invite you for tea every 3 days. You navigated between the two, facing the gang leader's spies. You acted like a low-level gang member who had been suddenly promoted, trembling with fear, just wanting to survive. Facing the third leader, you acted like a competent women's friend. Lu Ping stared at the words, competent women's friend, a wry smile on his face. In his previous life, his boss asked him to accompany clients to eat, drink, and sing. In this life, he changed to a different world and a different form, but the essence was one word, selling. The difference was that in his previous life he sold his liver, and in this life he sold a bit more. The text continued to scroll. You used the third leader's trust to begin accessing the Black Tiger Gang's core information. Qian Suihua managed the accounts. She knew every flow of silver, every shipment of ore, and the distribution of interests between the gang leader and the second leader. And at certain specific moments when her defenses were lowest, she was willing to tell you everything. Lu Ping silently upgraded the actual combat rating of the women's friend trait once more. The intelligence gathering efficiency was far beyond any normal channel. So, why were female secret agents always beautiful? You silently recorded in your heart. The second leader privately embezzled 30% of the ore profits. The gang leader knew but turned a blind eye. The third leader hated the second leader not because of justice, but because the second leader didn't include her in the cut. Those who are greedy remain greedy. Those who endure continue to endure. What the hateful hate isn't the greed. What they hate is that they didn't get their share. This gang was rotting from top to bottom. The speed of the text slowed by half a beat. The 47th day, while organizing supplies in the back warehouse, you discovered a sum of silver hidden in a partition, 500 taels, plus a box. There was a secret lock on the box. This was stolen money. Lu Ping marked this information with a red priority dot in his heart. In the first simulation, he never had the chance to touch these things. Back then, he was chopping vegetables in the kitchen and didn't even know where the door to the back warehouse opened. Byproducts of women's friend. The range of activity the third leader gave you was far beyond what a low-level gang member should have. Options popped up. A. Secretly report the location of the stolen money to the gang leader. B. Pretend you didn't see it, remember the location, and take it when you flee in the future. C. Move the money on the spot, then distribute it to the gang members to win hearts. Option A. Report to the gang leader. But, for a low-level gang member who was just promoted to suddenly know these secrets, the gang leader's first reaction wouldn't be gratitude, it would be suspicion. How did you know? Who brought you there? Who are you working with? By then, not only would he be finished, but the third leader would also be implicated. If the third leader fell, he would lose his only backing in the Black Tiger Gang. Option B. Remember the location and stay put. This money was his retreat, but not for use now. As for option C, was there even such an option? Lu Ping chose B. You restored the secret lock on the partition and turned to leave. A gang member at the warehouse door yawned and didn't spare you a glance. The 60th day, the gang leader suddenly summoned the core figures of the gang for a meeting. The content was only one thing. A sect called the Blood Demon Gate in the surrounding area had recently been expanding its territory and had already encroached on 3 of the Black Tiger Gang's outer strongholds. The gang leader was furious, but also very afraid. Although the Blood Demon Gate was also a secular sect, they had the shadow of a cultivation sect behind them. Lu Ping flipped through his memory of the first simulation. In the first simulation, when the Black Tiger Gang clashed with a neighboring sect, the gang leader drew people as cannon fodder. The manager reported his name, and he escaped by playing dead on the front line. The Black Tiger Gang was was annihilated, and that neighboring sect was likely the force behind the Blood Demon Gate. The countdown to annihilation had already begun. The text continued to scroll. The sucking up trait in operation, coupled with the third leader constantly speaking well of you on the side, caused the gang leader's attitude toward you to shift from suspicious and vigilant to useful and controllable. The gang leader began to arrange tasks that required brainpower, collecting debts, auditing goods, and acting as a liaison for other gangs. Lu Ping scanned these few lines. He had already re-evaluated the situation. The gang leader didn't trust him. The gang leader needed usable people under external pressure. This was a good thing. The greater the pressure, the larger his room to maneuver. The frequency of the third leader inviting you for tea increased, and she began to complain more and more about the Black Tiger gang in front of you. You poured tea while listening, occasionally chiming in with a few words, each one hitting her itch. Lu Ping looked at these lines, suddenly feeling a subtle sense of incongruity. In the decade he spent in the kitchen, he had heard the workers mention the third leader's reputation. Ruthless, killing without blinking since she was young, with over 40 thugs under her control. Would such a person spill her heart out without reservation to a newly promoted low-level gang member? Maybe. The favorability bonus from the women's friend trait was real. But apart from favorability, was Qian Cuihua's active dumping of this information just because of favorability, or was she also using him? Lu Ping suppressed this doubt and continued reading. The 130th day, the third leader sent the fourth inferior body tempering pill. The 190th day, the fifth one. The 240th day, you took the sixth inferior body tempering pill. At noon, the spiritual energy in your meridian surged, your dantian jolted, and you broke through. You reached the middle stage of body tempering. You broke through to the middle stage, but you also paid the price. The price, pill poison. The residue of 6 inferior body tempering pills had already formed irreversible blockages in your meridians. Without high-grade pills to resolve them, your cultivation in this life would stop at the middle stage of body tempering. Lu Ping stared at the words, stop at the middle stage of body tempering. 6 pills, half a year, pushed directly from early to middle. The speed was fast, but the price was even more outrageously high. In his previous life, he saved money on takeout, and 10 years later his physical exam report was all red arrows. In this life, he saved money on inferior pills, and his meridians were full of pill dregs. The text didn't give him much room for reflection here. The next line followed immediately. You looked back and thought, the third leader's coddling didn't seem to be for you alone. You pieced together some fragments from the gossip of gang members. Before you, there had been at least 3 similar little lads by the third leader's side. The first one stayed by the third leader for 2 years. His cultivation progressed rapidly from mortal to middle stage of body tempering, and then he died. The second one stayed for a year and a half, and also died. The third one was a bit smarter, seemed to discover some problems, and then ran away. 3 days later, he was fished out of the river with a slit on his throat from left ear to right ear. Qian Cuihua wasn't raising lovers. She was raising goo, poisonous insects. Practitioners fed by inferior body tempering pills had their meridians clogged by pill poison, forever unable to break through the middle stage of body tempering. And the middle stage of body tempering just happened to be the cultivation upper limit that posed no threat to Qian Cuihua. Controllable, useful, disposable. The favorability brought by the women's friend trait was real, and Qian Cuihua's coddling was also real. But sincerity and calculation were never contradictory. She truly liked you, and truly regarded you as a consumable. The boss who painted big dreams in his previous life was also truly convinced that the company's future was bright, while simultaneously regarding every employee as a battery. The text scrolled to the end of the year. The 365th day, 19 years old, 1 year of service. Trait generating. Congratulations on obtaining the trait. Tomato heavy user, grade S. Because you read a large amount of tomato web novel content, you can be immune to the vast majority of toxins, hallucinogens, and seductive arts in the world. 100 poisons shall not invade. Lu Ping stared at this trait, his whole body shaking. Grade S. Another grade S. Effect. Immunity to all poisons. The previous grade S was salted fish, with the effect of unshakable Taoist heart. He had just been worrying about the pill poison, and the next moment the system sent the antidote. Immune to toxins. Was pill poison a toxin? The vast majority of toxins in the world, as long as pill poison was within that range. This trait could directly resolve the pill dregs in his meridians. And it wasn't just pill poison. In a gang where one could be poisoned or drugged with hallucinogens at any time, the practical value of 100 poisons shall not invade was inestimable. System great. It was me who spoke too loudly before. Lu Ping silently offered his compliments to the simulator, even using the sucking up trait. Unfortunately, the simulator didn't pay attention to him. Currently equipped. Sucking up. Passing the buck. Salted fish. Women's friend. Do you want to replace one? Passing the buck was useful, but he wasn't currently in a predicament where he was being scapegoated. The tasks the gang leader arranged for him were jobs he could do, and the third leader was shielding him. The usage scenarios for passing the buck were shrinking rapidly, and tomato heavy user. Life-saving. Rescue. Poison neutralizing. 3-in-1. Replace. Passing the buck has been unequipped. Tomato heavy user has been equipped. Currently equipped. Sucking up. Tomato heavy user. Salted fish. Women's friend. The moment the trait replacement was completed, a new line of content popped up. Tomato heavy user trait takes effect immediately. The residual pill poison from from the 6 inferior body tempering pills accumulated in your meridians begins to be decomposed at an accelerated rate. It is expected to be completely cleared within 7 days. Your cultivation ceiling has been reopened. That evening, the third leader invited you for tea as usual. You picked up the teacup and took a sip. Tomato-heavy user trait instantly fed back. The tea contained a small amount of drunken immortal powder, a hallucinogen that causes loss of consciousness and resistance. It would make you completely lose consciousness. This cup of tea wasn't poisoned by the third leader. She was drinking from the same pot, totally unaware. Someone had tampered with the third leader's teapot. The target wasn't you. It was the third leader. Options popped up. A. Pretend you don't know. Fake being poisoned and unconscious, and see what the person behind the scenes wants to do with the third leader. B. Immediately warn the third leader that the tea is problematic, and use this to further gain her trust. C. Drain the tea in one gulp. Shout, "Good tea," and ask for another pot. Lu Ping paused for 3 seconds between A and B. Who was the person behind the scenes? And what was the purpose? If the gang leader wanted to move against the third leader, warning her meant taking sides. The gang leader would kill him immediately. If the second leader wanted to move against the third leader, warning her would be a pledge of loyalty. The third leader would completely treat him as one of her own. The stakes were too high, and there was not enough information. But one thing was certain. Tomato-heavy user had just been equipped, and the drunken immortal powder was ineffective against him. This was a whole card. A whole card shouldn't be revealed until the last moment. Playing dead, watching the show, collecting information. Lu Ping chose A. You closed your eyes. Your body went limp, and you slumped on the chaise longue. The tomato-heavy user trait kept your consciousness completely clear, but your appearance was indistinguishable from someone truly poisoned. The third leader also slumped. She fell heavily onto the other end of the chaise longue. 200 pounds of weight made the entire piece of furniture let out a painful moan. The room fell silent. Footsteps came from outside the door. Someone pushed the door open. The visitor stood on the threshold, looked down at the third leader slumped on the lawn, and then at you, who were unconscious. He laughed. Third sister. I'm sorry. You recognized this voice. The second leader, Zhao Taizhu. Zhao Taizhu closed the door properly. The sound of the latch sliding into place was dull and crisp. He didn't make a move first. He started rummaging through the room. First drawer of the vanity. Rouge and powder. Pushed back. Second drawer. Several pawn tickets and a string of copper coins. Pushed back. Third drawer. His movements paused for a beat. Then he took out a thin book. There were no words on the cover of that thin book. Zhao Taizhu opened it, glanced at it twice. The corner of his mouth twisted, and he stuffed the book into his chest. Then, he lifted the bed mattress. In the partition was a stack of silver bills, wrapped in oil paper, neatly stacked. Zhao Taizhu squatted down, counted them, and took them. Zhao Taizhu finished rummaging through everything he could. He stood in the center of the room, clapped the dust off his hands, and muttered to himself, "Third sister, oh third sister, you haven't had it easy, saving up this much family foundation all these years. It's all wiped out in one night." He tilted his head and looked at the chaise longue, to be precise. He looked at the unconscious third leader on it. Big brother didn't want to move against you. If you had just stayed put as your third leader, managed the accounts, played with your little lad, nobody would have bothered anyone else. But you just had to raise a little white face at the middle stage of body tempering. Big brother counted. You have over 40 thugs, plus this little lad. Heh, if you, Qian Cuihua, really turned your face, Big brother might not be able to hold you down. The gang leader moving against the third leader wasn't because of hate, but because of fear. The gang leader and the third leader were originally both in the late stage of body tempering. The third leader, plus a Lu Ping at the middle stage, already constituted a threat to the gang leader's power. The gang leader's reaction, like all bosses, was, "You can't be stronger than me. If your wings get hard, I have to trim them." As for Zhao Taizhu, he was just that pair of scissors. The text on the white background continued to scroll. Zhao Taizhu finished collecting the loot, stood up, and drew his ring-headed sword. The blade shone with a cold white light in the moonlight, freshly sharpened. The edge clean. He walked toward you. The tip of the blade wasn't pointed at the third leader. It was pointed at the back of your neck. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step. You could feel the chill of the blade creeping in through the pores of your neck. Options popped up. A. Erupt in the instant before the blade falls. Draw the third leader's weapon, and engage in close quarters combat. B. Pretend to be startled awake by the touch of the blade tip, and shout the third leader's name in a slurred voice to bait out the second leader's opening. C. Before the second leader makes a move, recite loudly. According to Article 7 of the Black Tiger Gang's Employee Handbook, it is forbidden to punish gang members outside of working hours without the union's approval. Option A. Erupt, close in, engage in combat. Zhao Taizhu was in the middle stage of body tempering, and so was Lu Ping. Moreover, Zhao Taizhu didn't know he was awake. This strike was a finishing move, not a fight. Zhao Taizhu's defense value at this distance, in this state, was equal to 0. Lu Ping chose A. Your body moved a quarter of a breath before Zhao Taizhu's blade touched your skin. Your right hand, the right hand that had been hanging limply by the side of the chaise longue during the entire unconscious state, reached lightning fast for the third leader's waist. Qian Kuihua's 300-pound body blocked Zhao Taizhu's line of sight. He couldn't see what your hand was doing. The only thing he saw was an unconscious young man suddenly flipping over. Zhao Taizhu's instinctive reaction, pressed the blade down, pierced the back of the neck first, but he was a quarter of a breath too slow. The sound of the short blade leaving the scabbard was very soft. Qian Kuihua's blade was well maintained. The inner wall of the scabbard was oiled, and there was almost no resistance when drawn. You used the momentum of the flip to roll out from the gap between the third leader and Zhao Taizhu. The short blade was held in a reverse grip, tip pointing upward, from bottom to top. It stabbed into Zhao Taizhu's chin. One strike, the tip entered through the chin, passed through the mouth, and sank into the skull. Zhao Taizhu's ring-headed sword slipped from his hand, hacking into the wooden frame of the chaise longue, chopping off a piece of wood. His body stiffened for an instant, then his knees went soft, and he slowly tipped forward. Second leader, Zhao Taizhu, dead. Lu Ping stared at this line. Zhao Taizhu, middle stage of body tempering. The second leader of the Black Tiger Gang, a character he hadn't even met in the first simulation, died under a short blade. Not because of a crushing strength difference, but because of an information gap. Zhao Taizhu didn't know the drunken immortal powder was ineffective against him. Zhao Taizhu didn't know he was awake. Zhao Taizhu didn't know every step he walked had been counted, calculated, and waited for. In his previous life, the colleague who stabbed him in the back tripped up so many times, not because they weren't ruthless enough, but because they could never imagine that the person being stabbed was awake earlier than them. The text on the white background continued to scroll down. The third leader was still unconscious. The sound of snoring transmitting evenly from the chaise longue. Her 300-pound body rose and fell, shaking the entire bed until it creaked. You stood beside the corpse, clutching the bloodied short blade. The blood flowed from the handle down your wrist, pooling in a small puddle on the floor tiles. Qian Cuihua knew nothing. Her little lad had just killed a man who wanted her life, while she was snoring away, dreaming of whatever delicious food in her dream. You killed the second leader. It is estimated that there is one stick of incense time before the gang leader's secret sentries discover the anomaly. Your window of opportunity is closing. Your gaze shifted from the corpse, through the open window, and landed in the direction of the back warehouse. Hidden there was a partition. You wiped the blood off the blade, tucked the short blade back into the third leader's waist. Qian Cuihua turned over, hummed, and continued to snore. You took the silver notes collected by the second leader. Then you pushed his body into the well in the courtyard, and wiped away the bloodstains. You did not head toward the main gate. You turned and headed toward the back courtyard warehouse. The direction was the opposite. You passed through the back courtyard. Under the moonlight, the lanterns in the third leader's courtyard were still lit. The sound of patrolling gang members changing shifts approached in the distance. You hugged the base of the wall as you walked. Your perception at the middle stage of body tempering accurately captured the breathing frequency of every secret sentry. You bypassed two groups of patrols, avoided a dozing sentry, reached the warehouse, the partitioned secret compartment. 500 taels of silver. Pack it up and take it away. You violently broke open the box. There were two things in the box. One low-grade spirit stone. Lu Ping saw this, and was slightly stunned. Low-grade spirit stone. In a secular gang like the Black Tiger Gang, how could there be spirit stones? Actually, the body tempering stage, when it comes down to it, is just a martial artist. In fact, it cannot yet be considered a true cultivator, and spirit stones are hard currency among cultivators. The text continued. You put away the spirit stone, and looked at the other item. It was a token. The front was smooth and wordless. The material was not like metal, nor like wood. The touch felt like it was between stone and bone. The back of the token was carved with an extremely complex set of patterns, indescribably eerie. You stared at these patterns. Something surged in the depths of your mind. A blurry image. Luoxia Village. The day of the massacre. On the cuff of a black shadow, a nearly identical pattern had flashed once. Luoxia Village. The first day Lu Ping transmigrated. The ground full of corpses. The whole village full of blood. He climbed out from under a cold corpse. Before he could figure out who he was, or where he was dragged away by people from the Black Tiger Gang. The pattern on the cuff of that black shadow overlapped with the pattern on the back of the token in his hand. It seems, the people of the Black Tiger Gang not only picked up him, a slave miner, but also pilfered the traces left by those who slaughtered the village. Even this spirit stone, I fear it was also left behind by that group of people. Options popped up. A. Take the token away. This item is related to the Luoxia Village massacre. It cannot be left behind. B. Only take the silver and spirit stone. Put the token back where it was. Do not touch things that are not understood. C. Hold the token above your head and shout "Open Sesame" to see if there is a surprise egg. Option C is as ridiculous as always. Lu Ping's attention stayed on it for less than 0.1 seconds. Then he scrolled past it. Option B. Do not touch things you don't understand. Sounds very steady, very consistent with his style of cowering until the end. But the patterns on this token are related to the murderer who slaughtered Luoxia Village. Lu Ping chose A. The moment the token went into his embrace, a trace of extremely faint coldness seeped from the surface of the token into his palm, and traveled half an inch along his meridians. The tomato-heavy user trait triggered. The chill was instantly decomposed and swallowed, dissipated into nothingness. Relying on your footwork at the middle stage of body tempering, you quickly left the warehouse. Your steps were silent, retracing along the base of the wall, without alerting anyone. Options popped up. A. Climb over the low wall at the back mountain. It has the highest safety factor, but it is slow, and there is a possibility of being discovered by secret sentries on the back mountain. B. Take the drainage ditch on the east side. It is narrow, narrow, foul-smelling, but it is completely in a blind spot for patrols. You vaguely remember. The Black Tiger Gang's drainage system leads to the outside river. C. Walk out the main gate and tell the guards, I resign. This is my resignation letter. Please process the handover within 3 working days. Option C. Are you here to be funny? Handover within 3 working days. Lu Ping gave a dry laugh in his heart. Even in his previous life, resigning was never this graceful. The boss chased him to finish all projects on hand before leaving. Dragged it out for 2 months. Lu Ping chose B. You crouched down. Pried open the iron grate at the corner of the back courtyard that was half covered by weeds. The grate was severely corroded. With a hard pull, half of the iron bar broke in your hand. The entrance to the drainage ditch was exposed. A thick stench poured out of the pitch-black ditch mouth, charging straight into your nasal cavity. You crawled in. The sewage reached your ankles. Viscous. Cold. You don't know how many days of swill and blood were mixed in it. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to operate. Pathogens that might exist in the ditch water. All toxins were immunized. Your body had no discomfort. Only your nose was protesting. You crawled in the narrow ditch for about a quarter of an hour. The direction turned twice. The ditch walls changed from brick to rammed earth, and from rammed earth to natural rock crevices. Ahead, a wisp of breeze brushed against your sweat-soaked forehead. The exit. You flipped out of the drainage ditch mouth, and landed in a dried-up riverbed, in the direction of the Black Tiger Gang in the distance. Firelight was lighting up. Not ordinary lighting torches, but in patches. Urgent. Rushing everywhere. The Black Tiger Gang has entered a full state of lockdown. Detected that the host has left the Black Tiger Gang. Automatic resignation process initiated. Time until automatic resignation. 364 days. The red countdown timer lit up again. Familiar numbers. Familiar pressure. You walked 3 miles north along the dried-up riverbed, before finding a crevice in the rocks to drill into. You bypassed the official road, and drilled into the mountains to the north. Your goal was very clear. Walk around the mountains. Avoid the Black Tiger Gang's sphere of influence. Head toward the direction of the Qingmu Gate, the lowest level cultivation sect in your memory. You have silver notes, a low-grade spirit stone, and a token of unknown origin. You also have a short blade at your waist. You believe that at the middle stage of body tempering, you at least have the basic ability to protect yourself. Lu Ping saw this, and his eyelids twitched. The words "believe that" are usually not a good omen. The simulator will likely teach him a lesson about life later. The next day, you found a small path left by hunters. The path leads to the mountain ridge. The ground is dry. Walking speed will increase by 30%, but there are animal hoof prints on the roadside. Options popped up. A. Walk the mountain ridge path. Speed is the priority. Leave the Black Tiger Gang's sphere of influence as soon as possible. B. Detour into the low-lying woodlands. Slow speed but few traces. C. Stand at the intersection and post a recruitment notice. Sincerely looking for a local guide. 5 insurances and 1 fund negotiable. Option A. Speed priority. Seems to be the optimal choice. Option B. Complex terrain. Risky without a map. Option C. Is there an option C? Lu Ping hesitated for a moment. Decided to play it safe. You chose B. You detoured into the low-lying woodlands. Rotten leaves covered the back of your feet. Humidity crept into your pant legs. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to operate. Poisonous mosquito bites. Invalid. Miasma in the rotting leaves. Invalid. You walked very slowly, but left no obvious footprints. Day 3. You encountered a wild boar. Its shoulder height was nearly a zhang. Fangs protruding. A circle of black hard bristles on its back. Its hooves stepped into the mud. Every step could leave a half-inch deep pit. There was faint spiritual energy flowing in its body. It was not an ordinary wild boar. It was a mountain beast stained with spiritual energy. It stared at you, and began to dig the ground. Mud flew 2 zhang away. You realized its charging distance was already sufficient. Options popped up. A. Relying on the middle stage of body tempering. Go head-to-head. Test your current combat power. B. Climb a tree immediately. Wait for the wild boar to leave. C. Take out your resume and apply to establish a labor relationship with the wild boar. Lu Ping's attention stayed on A for half a breath. Middle stage of body tempering. Just killed Zhao Taizhu. Just ran away with the Black Tiger Gang's money. In a normal exhilarating story, the protagonist should head into the mountains, hunt at will, grill meat and level up. Just do it. So, Lu Ping chose B. You chose B. You turned and rushed to the nearest old tree. You stepped on the trunk for leverage, and climbed to a branch 2 zhang high in 3 moves. The wild boar rushed over. It didn't stop. It hit the tree. The tree broke. Lu Ping stared at this line of text. His face twitched. Very good. This survival experience of climbing a tree failed in front of a mountain beast in the cultivation world. Knowledge point updated. You briefly thought about life in midair. You fell into a bush. There were poisonous thorns in the bush, piercing into your arm and back. The tomato-heavy user trait took effect. Toxins were immunized. You rolled twice, and ran as soon as you stood up. The wild boar chased you for a full hour. It crashed into 7 small trees, crushed 2 mountain rocks, and was finally blocked by a foul-smelling swamp. You lay in the mud on the other side of the swamp. Half of your body sunk in. The wild boar dug the ground a dozen times on the opposite side, and turned to leave. You looked at the pig turning to leave. There was not a trace of victory in your heart. A pig, just a wild boar, chased a middle-stage body tempering practitioner into a refugee. You originally occasionally thought, escaping the Black Tiger gang. Even if you couldn't walk sideways, at least you wouldn't have to bow your head to look at people's faces. This wild boar gave you a slap in the face. Experts from secular gangs enter the mountain with spiritual energy, and their ecological niche drops straight down. In the mine, you were a slave. In the Black Tiger gang, you were a little white face. In the mountains, you might just be an extra meal. You changed your route. You no longer walk on the ridge. Don't walk animal trails. Don't get close to the edge of water sources. You specifically choose low-lying areas that are damp and dark, infested with poisonous insects, and piled with rotting leaves. Ordinary beasts are unwilling to approach these places. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to play its role. Miasma, poisonous mosquitoes, toxins in rotting water sources, poisonous wild fruits, all invalid. You realized for the first time that reading a large amount of web novels really can save your life. Lu Ping saw this, and almost couldn't hold it in. In his previous life, his boss scolded him for slacking off to read novels. Now it's fine. Novels saved his life. If he could go back, he would definitely take a screenshot of this line and paste it on his boss' face. Of course, assuming the boss is still alive, and willing to admit that employees have the right to slack off. But being unable to poison you doesn't mean you can't be starved to death. Day 11. Your dry rations are exhausted. Several thousand taels of silver notes cannot buy a single mouthful of hot rice in the deep mountains. The low-grade spirit stone in your hand is also just a hard piece of rock. You don't know how to absorb spirit stones. You tried taking a bite. Toothache. You gave up. Lu Ping closed his eyes. Getting rich overnight, then starving to death in the mountains. This script is too corporate. Year-end bonus arrives in the account. The person is laid off. The money is still there. The person is gone. Day 12. You use a short blade to dig wild vegetables. Tomato-heavy user helped you filter out the toxicity. Day 13. You caught a snake. The snake bit you. You were fine. The snake was not. Day 14. You survived on half a snake and 3 handfuls of wild vegetables. On the night of the 15th day, you discovered firelight in the valley. Beside the firelight, there are 3 corpses. The corpses were wearing uniform cyan-gray short robes. The wounds were at the throat. The cuts were neat. There were no signs of fighting nearby. The person who did it had a cultivation level far higher than theirs. Options popped up. A. Approach the corpses. Search for available supplies, especially dry rations and maps. B. Leave immediately. Do not touch the dead. Do not get involved in strange trouble. C. Stand by the fire and host a morning meeting. Ask the 3 corpses to report the cause of death one by one. Lu Ping didn't choose immediately this time. A was tempting. Dry rations, map, identity information. These are the 3 things he lacks the most right now. B was steady. Firelight appearing next to dead people is in itself very abnormal. The murderer might not have left, or might have intentionally left it as bait. The 3 corpses wearing uniform robes likely belong to some faction. In the cultivation world, touching a corpse doesn't mean picking up a bargain. It might mean taking on a pot burden/blame. But without searching, he would still have to walk around in the mountains. That wild boar had already broken half of his confidence. Keep walking aimlessly for a few more days. He wouldn't need others to do it. Starvation could press him to death. Lu Ping chose A. You chose A. You lowered your body. Bypassed to the downwind side to approach the firelight. There was an empty bag at the waist of the first corpse. Nothing was found on the second corpse. A partial map was hidden in the boot of the third corpse. No dry rations. You unfolded the map. A name caught your attention. Qingmu Gate. Qingmu Gate. This map is useful. As long as he comes into contact with Qingmu Gate, Lu Ping would have the opportunity to get hired by Qingmu Gate and continue his length of service. Moreover, this is a cultivation sect. You just tucked the map into your chest. Footsteps came from the depths of the valley. Step, stop, another step, walking very slowly. But every time a step fell, the chi and blood in your body would sync with it. The visitor's cultivation level is far beyond yours. Dead bodies, firelight, map, and an unknown existence walking out from the depths of the valley. These 4 things put together, no matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like a scene where you can pick up a bargain at will. Careless. No, actually, it can't be considered careless. After all, he, Lu Ping, is a man with a simulator. How did that saying go? If a young man isn't arrogant, is he still a young man? You took 3 steps back. The rotten leaves under your feet suddenly shattered silently. A cold spiritual force spread up from the ground and wrapped around your ankle. You can't move. In the darkness, a woman walked out. Her white clothes were stained with blood. Her hair was messy. Her robe was swaying gently in the mountain wind. Her face was unnaturally flushed. There was a sword wound on her shoulder, a palm print on her abdomen, and a small bloodstain on her neck. But she did not appear miserable. That face was cold and breathtakingly beautiful. Her brows and eyes looked like they were covered with fresh snow from the peak, even stained with blood. It couldn't suppress the aloofness and nobility in her bones, the blood color falling on her white clothes. Instead, it looked like residual plum blossoms in the snow. The injuries and drug effects did not detract from her temperament. Instead, they cracked a seam in that coldness, revealing a bit of tragic, broken beauty, and also revealing a bit of living aura. Every step she took, the residual spiritual energy around her would tremble gently. The tomato-heavy user trait triggered. There were residues of Hahuan powder, hypnotic incense, and spirit-devouring powder in the air. You are immune. The woman looked up at you. Her eyes were cold at first, then, paused for half a breath, like a drowning person, seeing a piece of driftwood. The women's friend trait activated. Note: the effect of women's friend on women with extremely unstable emotions will be significantly enhanced. Lu Ping froze completely. No way. Again? The last one to trigger women's friend was Qian Cuehua. This time it was directly replaced by a blood-stained white-clothed female cultivator. The category has upgraded. The danger level has also upgraded. And what does the effect of women's friend on women with extremely unstable emotions will be significantly enhanced mean? You broken simulator. Are you serious? You tried to speak. The sucking up trait attempted to activate. Activation failed. What? Lu Ping's heart sank. Sucking up failed. This is the first time. It's not that the trait is useless. It's that the target state is wrong. The other party is not in a normal state of communication at all right now. This is very bad. What is the most feared thing about flattery in the workplace? Fearing that the boss is in a rage and won't listen to human words. The cultivation world is even more direct. If they won't listen, they will take action. Target state abnormal. The woman raised her hand. You didn't see clearly how she moved. The next instant, you found yourself off the ground. Her hand gripped your throat. The power of the middle stage of body tempering had no effect in front of her. Your short blade was still at your waist, but you didn't even have the thought of drawing the blade before it could fully arise. Her fingertips were very hot. Her breathing was chaotic. The bloody smell on her body, mixed with the fragrance of medicine and a faint cold scent, drilled into your nasal cavity. She leaned close to you. Options popped up. A. Struggle immediately. Forcefully draw the blade. Strive to cut her wrist. B. Stop resisting. Completely lie flat. C. Submit a resignation application on the spot. Request to withdraw from this subquest. Lu Ping stared at A. Very full of spirit. What was said just now? If a young man isn't arrogant, is he still a young man? So, Lu Ping chose B. You chose B. You stopped resisting. The salted fish trait took effect. Your state of mind is solid. Tomato heavy user continued to operate. Residual drug effects of Hahuan powder, hypnotic incense, and spirit devouring powder could not invade your body. She leaned in another half inch. She spoke. Her voice was hoarse, borrowing you for a use. You cannot judge her cultivation level. When she gripped your throat, you couldn't even move a single finger. Salted fish trait took effect. Your Taoist heart remained unmoved. Your body was very panicked, but your heart was very calm. She hauled you along, and rushed straight into the depths of the valley. Half an hour later, you arrived in front of a mountain wall. There was a hidden cave below the mountain wall. The entrance was covered by vines. She raised her hand and waved. The vines parted automatically. You don't understand what method she used, but the chi and blood in your body, when she raised her hand, retracted directly into the dantian. The cave was very dry. There were old fire marks on the stone wall. This is not a place she found temporarily. This is a hideout she prepared in advance. Lu Ping's attention was pinned on the words prepared in advance. This woman is not just simply fleeing for her life. She has a route, has a hideout, and was able to kill 3 people outside while severely injured. This type of person is the most dangerous. Not crazy, but an injured superior. In the company in his previous life, the hardest person to serve wasn't the boss who scolded people daily. It was the boss who had just been held accountable by headquarters and was looking for someone to take the blame. If he jumped up now, there's an 80% chance both the pot and the person would be shattered together. She threw you in front of the stone wall. Your back hit the rock face. Your chest felt stifled. She turned and sealed the cave entrance. A layer of faint spiritual light stuck to the cave wall, and then vanished. You don't understand the restrictive barrier, but you know, you can't run. Options popped up. A. Launch a surprise attack while she is setting up the barrier. Bet that she is severely injured and weak. B. Continue to play weak. Try your best to drag out time. Observe what exactly she has been poisoned with. C. Solemnly express that you sell your talents but not your body. Hope that both parties can sign a temporary outsourcing agreement. Lu Ping looked at A. Paused for half a breath. Tempting. Very tempting. Female cultivator severely injured. Ensnared by drug effects. There is also a palm print on her abdomen. If this were a normal exhilarating story, he should erupt now. Counter kill. Search the corpse. Lick the treasure chest. And conveniently receive a remnant soul ring. So, Lu Ping chose B. You chose B. You didn't struggle. You sat down against the stone wall. Your hands hung by your sides, assuming a posture of giving up resistance. The female cultivator turned around. She stood at the entrance of the cave, her hands supporting the stone wall, her shoulders heaving gently. That white garment had already been soaked through by half with blood. She didn't act immediately. She stared at you, paused for a few breaths. She asked you, "You are a person from a secular gang." You nodded immediately. You spoke. "This little one is just a gang member who escaped from the Black Tiger gang. Inadvertently entered the valley. Dare not offend the senior." Sucking up trait took slight effect. Her disgust toward you lowered a bit, but the next instant, the drug effect in her body erupted. She pressed against the stone wall. She pressed 5 shallow pits into the stone wall. Gravel fell to the ground. Lu Ping stared at the 5 shallow pits. Fingers pressing on stone. Pressing out pits. Very good. This, severely injured and weak, can probably slap him into the wall with one palm. And he wouldn't be able to be pried off. She gritted her teeth and spat out 5 words. Broken Fate Huan powder. She stared at you, speaking very slowly. This is not ordinary aphrodisiac poison. It specifically destroys a female cultivator's Tao foundation. It cannot be suppressed. The Tao foundation collapses. In the best case, cultivation is abolished. In the worst case, death. You asked, does the senior have a solution? She did not answer. She leaned in one step. The temperature in the cave began to rise. The stone wall behind you radiated heat. She stopped in front of you. Yes, transfer. The toxicity is transferred from my body to your body. There is only one method. The male side will die. Lu Ping looked at the 4 words, male side will die. He was quiet for a second. Then his inner bullet screen exploded directly. Is this reasonable? Is it reasonable? He just escaped from the Black Tiger gang. Just from Qian Cuihua. Redacting 50,000 words. Now it's happening again. Did he transmigrate into the immortal cultivation world? Or transmigrate into some kind of outrageous workplace sexual harassment drama? Accompanying clients to drink in his previous life. Drank until he had gastric bleeding. Accompanying female cultivators to detoxify in this life. And even have to pay with his life after finishing the detox. Sure enough, no matter where the ox and horse workhorses go, bodily wear and tear is never reimbursed. Jiang Mutian looked at you. Her name appeared for the first time. I will not kill you. I will give you silver and medicinal pills. If you have the life to survive the night, then you are lucky. Lu Ping looked at this line of text. There was only silent complaining in his heart. Actually, Jiang Mushan's approach was very cultivator style. Without asking for consent. Without discussing compensation. Directly arranged. When the boss in his previous life asked him to work overtime on weekends, he would also say, work hard. I'll invite you to dinner later. Later. Whose later is it? You still wanted to say something. She had already raised her hand, pressing on your shoulder. Your words were pressed back into your throat. The drug effect completely overwhelmed her reason. Her lips pressed up. What happened next? Redacting 50,000 words. Your dignity, shattered into pieces again. Salted fish trait skillfully swept the fragments into a corner, and labeled it, temporarily not processed. Your Taoist heart remained unmoved. Lu Ping was numb. Really numb. This, again, was used very accurately. Accurately enough to make one want to pry off the system panel, and press it into the wall. The broken Fate Huan powder began to transfer. A massive amount of toxicity surged into your meridians. A normal middle-stage body tempering practitioner would have his meridians burned out within the next few hours, and die from qi and blood reflux. Tomato-heavy user trait activated. Toxin being analyzed. Toxin being decomposed. Toxin being converted. Conversion successful. The polluting medicinal nature of broken Fate Huan powder was completely stripped away. The remaining yin-yang spiritual energy began to sink into your meridians. Your meridians were forcefully widened. Your qi and blood began to surge. The bottleneck of the middle stage of body tempering began to loosen. Lu Ping stared at this series of prompts. His heart, which had already laid flat, finally moved. Here it comes. Information gap. Jiang Mutian thought he couldn't survive the night, but the trait does not reason. Tomato-heavy user, specializing in treating various poisons. You were in so much pain you almost passed out. Your meridians were propped open by spiritual energy. Your bones shook section by section. Qi and blood collided in your body. Salted fish trait continued to take effect. Your mentality was as stable as if you were watching someone else work overtime. Unfortunately, your body reached its limit, and you passed out completely. Lu Ping saw the words, as if, almost couldn't hold back the urge to complain. The system itself doesn't avoid rhetoric. However, this description is indeed accurate. Body painful to the point of wanting to resign. Mentality still doing year-end summary. Then, sudden death. This broken script. I am not playing anymore. Your bottleneck shattered. Late stage of body tempering. Your bottleneck shattered again. Peak stage of body tempering. Breakthrough successful. One night passed. Your body was still in great pain. The tearing sensation after the meridians were forcefully propped open had not yet receded. But the qi and blood in your dantian were already several times stronger than last night. You just propped yourself up lightly, and sat up from the ground. You were the only one left in the cave. Jiang Mutian had already left. The restriction at the entrance was still there. However, it was a restriction that you could only exit, but could not enter. There was a storage ring on the ground. Lu Ping's attention landed on the 3 words, storage ring. Storage ring. Standard equipment in the cultivation world. The silver notes of the Black Tiger gang, placed in the secular world. They are enough for a person to live comfortably for a lifetime. But in the hands of a cultivator, silver notes are just secular waste paper. Storage rings are different. This thing itself represents the status of a cultivator. There might also be medicinal pills inside. Cultivation techniques. Spirit stones. Dharma artifacts. The female cultivator said she would leave him a sum of money. As a result, she left a storage ring. What is this considered? Resignation compensation? Or work-related injury indemnity? You reached out to take the storage ring. A layer of faint spiritual power remained on the surface of the ring. You tried injecting chi and blood. Failed. You tried to urge it with the operation method of the body tempering technique. Failed. You used a short blade to pry it. The ring had no reaction. You changed a method. You placed the ring against your forehead. Failed. You tried to take a bite. Toothache. Lu Ping watched, and his temples jumped. Very good. Familiar formula. Can't bite the spirit stone. Can't bite the storage ring either. High-end assets of the cultivation world, in the hands of this low-level wage earner, are temporarily all hard objects. You finally confirmed. This storage ring requires divine sense or a special imprint to open. You have no divine sense. You also don't have the opening imprint left by the female cultivator. Oh, so this was a burial object left for you by the female cultivator. Even, she also warmly helped you set up a protective restriction to prevent your corpse from being swallowed by mountain beasts. You broken system. I thank you for explaining it so clearly to me. After Lu Ping cursed and ranted internally for a while, he also fell silent. These few lines of text are a bit heartbreaking. She probably really didn't think he could survive. When she threw down the storage ring, it was most likely just fulfilling a moral procedure of not eating for free, similar to how a boss in the previous life would make employees work overtime all night, and then post a "thank you for your hard work" in the group chat. It is indeed hard work, but there is no reimbursement. If calculated this way, Jiang Mutian is still more righteous. You put away the storage ring. The restriction at the entrance flickered slightly. You tentatively walked out one step. The restriction did not block you. The mountain wind blew in from the gaps in the vines. You smelled damp soil, rotten leaves, and the fishy smell left by beasts in the distance. Your injuries haven't fully recovered yet, but you are already at the peak stage of body tempering. You have a partial map in your embrace. The map marks the direction of Qingmu Gate. Options popped up. A. Following the partial map you just picked up. Continue looking for Qingmu Gate. B. Stay near the cave for a while to recuperate. Research the restriction and the storage ring. C. Follow the residual aura of Jiang Mutian and chase after her. Solemnly demand that she take responsibility for you. At least sign a supplementary work-related injury compensation agreement. Lu Ping looked at the third option. The corner of his eye twitched lightly. He stared at the two words, take responsibility. Silent for a full 3 breaths. Makes sense. Very makes sense. In my previous life, asking the boss for overtime pay meant being sidelined. In this life, asking a female cultivator for an explanation might mean getting pierced through the chest. Lu Ping took a deep breath. He decisively chose A. You chose A. Following the incomplete map. Continue searching for the Qingmu Gate. You stuffed the storage ring into the innermost layer of your clothing. The ring pressed against your skin. Hard, cold, cannot be opened. You confirmed. The only current use for this thing is that it pokes and irritates. Lu Ping stared at the white background and black text. His teeth roots felt a bit sore. The work-related injury compensation left by the female cultivator belongs to high-end assets. High-end to the point where he doesn't even have the authorization to use it. This is very corporate. The company issues stock options, which can only be cashed in after 3 years. If the employee doesn't survive 3 years, it is automatically void. You left the cave. You didn't hurry on your way immediately. You first walked around the cave entrance 3 times, disrupting your own footprints, and covered the snapped small branches with rotten leaves. Half an hour later, you confirmed there were no pursuers behind you, nor any lingering aura of Jiang Mutian. You began to advance along the incomplete map. The physique of a peak body tempering stage allowed your speed of travel in the mountains to increase significantly. You bypassed 3 animal trails according to the map, 2 mountain streams, and a forest of miasma. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to operate. Miasma is invalid. Poisonous insects are invalid. Rotten water is invalid. The salted fish trait continued to operate. Your efficiency in traveling was halved, but you were not impatient. On the 19th day, you encountered again that black-maned wild boar that had once chased you for half an hour. Its shoulder height was nearly a zhang. There were dried blood clots on its black bristles. Its left hind leg was dragging on the ground, and there were 3 claw marks on its flank. It was injured. You originally wanted to detour, but it had already discovered you. It lowered its head and dug the ground. Mud was kicked a zhang away. It began to charge. Options popped up. A. Take advantage of your illness to take your life. How dare you bully me? B. A gentleman takes revenge even 10 years later. Continue running. Prioritize stability above all. C. Take out the storage ring, and apply to bribe the wild boar with high-end assets you cannot open. Lu Ping did not immediately choose B this time. The last time he was chased by this pig, it was mainly because he was in the middle body tempering stage. Now he is at the peak body tempering stage. He has leveled up twice, and the wild boar is injured. How did that saying go? Forget it. Never mind. Just finish it. Lu Ping chose A. You chose A. You did not take the black-maned wild boar's charge head-on. You retreated to the edge of a mud pit. The mud pit was full of grayish-black rotten water, which would rot the skin of an ordinary person. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to operate. The black-maned wild boar rushed up close. You dodged its fangs by turning sideways, and took advantage of the slippery mud pit to roll to its side. Its left hind leg was injured, so its turn was a beat slower. You seized the opportunity, and the short blade stabbed into its right eye. The black-maned wild boar went mad and shook its head, throwing you back to the ground. You did not let go. The chi and blood of the peak body tempering stage exploded. You used all your strength to stir the short blade downward. The black-maned wild boar crashed to the ground. It twitched for a dozen breaths, and then stopped moving. You killed the black-maned wild boar. You cut off the meat you could carry, and pried out 2 intact fangs. You dragged the meat and left for 3 miles, stopping in a wind-shielded crevice. You scraped off the filth on the meat, and started eating raw meat. The tomato-heavy user trait continued to operate. Parasites are invalid. Residual toxins are invalid. Decay is invalid. You gained temporary fullness. You also obtained a simple conclusion. In the cultivation world, a good stomach is also a core competency. Lu Ping almost laughed out loud. This conclusion, if put in his previous life, could be written into a health preservation public account. He had already thought of the title. Shocking. Worker improves physical fitness by reading tomato novels. Boss remained silent after reading. You continued on your way. On the 23rd day, you saw the plains outside the mountains. In the distance, there was a cyan mountain gate. Clouds and mist swirled above the mountain gate, and the spiritual light of the array flowed slowly along the mountain wall. Qingmu Gate. You stopped on the hillside. You observed for half an hour first. There were many people at the foot of the mountain. Mortals, martial artists, loose cultivators, teenagers carrying bundles, and rich kids brought by family elders. They stood in long queues. Banners hung on both sides of the mountain road. Qingmu Gate, the first stop on your path to immortality. Join the sect today. Become an immortal tomorrow. 6 months to chi refining. 3 years to inner sect. 5 years to foundation establishment is not a dream. You walked down the hillside, and blended into the crowd. You originally thought you would see spiritual root testing, heart-questioning paths, or immortal ascending ladders, but you only saw a long table. Behind the long table sat 3 Qingmu Gate disciples. Beside them stood a wooden sign. On the wooden sign was written, "Entrance registration fee, 1 low-grade spirit stone." You stood in the crowd, looking at the words on the wooden sign, and remained silent for a long time. You began to suspect that you didn't arrive at a cultivation sect, but at a paid training class for working. Someone in front opened his mouth with a trembling voice. "Immortal Master, I have no spirit stones. Can I test my bones first?" The Qingmu Gate disciple put down his pen. "Bone quality can be discussed later. Pay first." That person asked again, "And if I have no spirit stones?" The Qingmu Gate disciple took a stack of yellow paper from under the table. Qingmu Loan. First month interest free. Pay off within 6 months. Qingmu Immortal Loan. Assisting your cultivation. Foundation establishment next year. A promising future. Lu Ping looked at these words, and only felt familiar. Previous life. Training loans. Consumer loans. Job deposits. Everything has merged in this other world. Sure enough, no matter where the ox and horse go, they cannot escape the control of capital. Even in the cultivation world, there is cultivation capitalism waiting for you. It was finally your turn. You approached the wooden table. A Qingmu Gate deacon sat in the middle of the long table. Sect entry fee, 1 low-grade spirit stone. Options popped up. A. Hand over the only low-grade spirit stone, and enter the sect directly. B. Apply for a Qingmu loan, and keep the spirit stone as a trump card. C. Question on the spot if this is illegal fundraising, and demand to see the business license. Option C. Get lost. Lu Ping paused for a long time between A and B. B is very tempting. Spirit stones are precious. This is the only hard currency for cultivators he has truly touched so far. Keeping it in hand is a trump card. However, Qingmu loan is not an ordinary debt. Lu Ping chose A. You chose A. You paid 1 low-grade spirit stone. Detected that the host has joined the job. Qingmu Gate, a grassroots cultivation labor dispatch agency. Position, probationary disciple. Length of service successfully continued. Automatic resignation countdown cancelled. The deacon gave you a sect handbook, and an identity token. You are now a person of the Qingmu Gate. As for what identity? Haha. Lu Ping stared at the last 2 characters. Haha. The lethality of these 2 characters is too strong. You, along with 372 probationary disciples in the same batch, were led toward the Qingmu Gate mountain gate. The moment you passed through the cyan archway, the chi and blood in your body agitated on its own. The concentration of heaven and earth spiritual energy clearly increased. Your meridians jolted slightly, just like someone with high-altitude sickness getting a breath of oxygen. The Qingmu Gate disciples led everyone to the Immortal Ascension Hall. The hall was very large, enough to accommodate thousands of people meditating simultaneously. The ground was covered with cyan array patterns. The patterns extended from all directions to the central platform. As soon as you entered the hall, you felt spiritual energy pressing down from the soles of your feet, the walls, and the dome simultaneously. For a body-tempering martial artist, this is indeed a sacred place for cultivation. But the spiritual energy was too dense to the point of being abnormal. Many trial disciples showed wild joy. Some knelt and cried. Some kissed their identity tokens 3 times, and some roared wildly. Grandmaster has succeeded. Finally, I have immortal destiny. Lu Ping did not laugh. He only felt this scene looked a bit familiar. Paid a huge training fee. Sat in a luxuriously decorated classroom. The lecturer stood on the stage and said, "As long as you work hard, everyone can have an annual salary of millions. Applause if you understand." People in the audience applauded. Signed the loan papers. With tears tears in their eyes. And then 6 months later, couldn't find a job, phone bombarded by debt collectors. The one in charge of the training was Deacon Lu Cheng. He wore Qingmu Gate deacon robes, with a string of cyan wooden plaques hanging from his waist. Lu Cheng stood on the central high platform. Everyone, enter my Qingmu Gate, and you will have a 6-month opportunity to ascend to immortality. Those who break through the qi refining stage within 6 months are true disciples. Those who do not break through after 6 months will be handled by the sect. Will be handled. Lu Ping's brow twitched slightly. These 4 words are too familiar. In his previous life, the company said the organization had other considerations, which usually meant the employee badge would soon be invalid. Said position optimization, which meant you could pack your cardboard box. Said will be handled, which was even more ruthless. Might not even let you take the box. Someone raised a hand. Deacon, sir, will those who don't break through be sent down the mountain? Lu Cheng didn't reply immediately, but just looked at that teenager faintly. The teenager who asked the question stiffened significantly, and immediately shut his mouth. Lu Cheng spoke. The sect will not waste any person who has immortal destiny. The hall was silent for 3 breaths, and then someone took the lead in kowtowing. Thank the sect for its mercy. More people followed and shouted. Thank the sect for its mercy. First day at the Immortal Ascension Hall. Everyone received a copy of the Basic Qi Induction Manual, 3 bigu pills, and a straw mat. Deacon Lu Cheng stood at the hall door. Sect mercy, providing 3 bigu pills for free. One can last 10 days, starting from the 2nd month. Bigu pills must be purchased with spirit stones. Those with insufficient spirit stones can continue to apply for cultivation assistance loans. Someone asked cautiously. Deacon, sir, wasn't the entrance fee already paid? Lu Cheng tilted his head to look at him. The entrance fee is the entrance fee. Cultivation resources are cultivation resources. You paid the money to enter the mountain. Do you still want to eat the sect's rice for free? That person lowered his head, and did not dare to ask again. You were assigned to District C, west side of the Immortal Ascension Hall. Puffball number 97. Next to the puffball was a small array eye. The array eye was slightly hot, continuously pumping spiritual energy into the body of the person sitting on it. You opened the Qingmu Qi Induction Manual. The cultivation method was not profound, but complete, far more formal than that incomplete body tempering manual of yours. This method requires inducing spirit into the body, converting qi and blood into spiritual power, opening the Dantian spirit aperture, and completing the qualitative change from body tempering to qi refining. You began to cultivate. The qi and blood of the peak body tempering stage came into contact with spiritual energy, and your meridians immediately swelled with pain. This was not gentle breathing. This was forced infusion. On the first night, someone failed to break through. That person screamed. Blood blisters bulged all over his skin. 3 breaths later, the blood blisters exploded. The qi and blood were absorbed by the array patterns on the ground. The entire Immortal Ascension Hall was instantly silent. Lu Cheng stood at the hall door, and said faintly, Taoist heart is unstable. Immortal destiny is shallow. 2 chores disciples came in, and swept away the clothes and bone dregs on the ground. The puffball was wiped clean. You stared silently at that puffball. Options popped up. A. Fully absorb the spiritual energy of the Immortal Ascension Hall, striving to break through to the qi refining stage as quickly as possible. B. Suppress the absorption speed, and first observe the laws of the array and the causes of death of others. C. Apply to Deacon Lu Cheng for a job transfer, stating that you are more suitable for the canteen in charge of paid water drinking. Lu Ping did not touch A. It was too tempting. The spiritual energy concentration in the Immortal Ascension Hall is high. The Qingmu Qi Induction Manual is complete. He also has the foundation of the peak body tempering stage, giving it a full shock. He might really be able to reach qi refining. But the problem is also here. This mode of 6-month limited breakthrough or be handled is essentially a sales funnel. Geniuses are screened out. The dregs are squeezed dry. The 40 years of the first simulation made Lu Ping know that he is not a genius. The result of a full impact might just be the second cloud of blood mist. Lu Ping chose B. You chose B. The salted fish trait took effect. Your cultivation efficiency was halved, and the speed of spiritual energy infusion decreased accordingly. You were not dizzy from the spiritual energy of the Immortal Ascension Hall. You started counting people. First night, 1 person died. Third night, 3 people died. Fifth night, 2 people died. 10th day, a total of 17 peak body tempering stage disciples attempted to impact qi refining.